Chapter 732. The pool was very deep, and the water was very strange. If one didn't use their origin energy and force themselves to dive, they would only be able to dive about 100 meters. Ordinary people could only dive about 16 meters. Because of the liquid water pressure, their bodies wouldn't be able to withstand it. However, the bodies of origin ability users have been strengthened, so they could go deeper. After 100 meters, even a powerful expert like Ding Ming would find it difficult to continue if they didn't use their origin energy. This was the problem. Once they used their origin energy, the pool water would immediately be activated and turn into a highly toxic liquid. At this moment, Isendale could be seen opening the shield of the mixed essence umbrella. The shield wrapped around Isendale and Lan Bing and slowly pushed them down like a sharp sword. Isendale wasn't afraid of poison, but Lan Bing wasn't, so the speed was very slow. In the depths of the pool was another palace. This palace was exactly the same as the one on the previous floor. There were 16 pillars surrounding a huge pool. However, there was a huge difference between the two. The palace above looked like it was dead. There were gray marks everywhere. Gray stone slabs, gray pillars, and gray pools. There was not the slightest bit of life or vitality. However, the lower level of the palace had color. The stone floor had a glossy luster. The 16 pillars emitted a faint green light. 7-colored light surged in the pool. This place seemed to have vitality and energy. This must be the secret place of the devouring world. Ding Ming quickly descended from the water hole at the top. The three of them came to the center of the palace. What is this place? Isendale couldn't help but be curious. Lan Bing suddenly said, "This should be the sacred lake of the devouring world." Sacred lake? Ding Ming was also curious. Isendale glanced at her. "Do you know about it?" The doubt in her words was obvious. Strong people like Ding Ming, and I don't know about it. How could a small warlord like you know about it? It wasn't that Isendale was deliberately against her. She didn't have any hostility towards Lan Bing, but this woman was related to Ding Ming. She immediately felt a sense of crisis. What if Ding Ming also injected Lan Bing with divine light energy? One had to know that this woman was also very flirtatious and charming. Even the young master of Sheng Hao was infatuated with her. If Ding Ming favored her and directly promoted her to a battle saint, he would feel that he had suffered a great loss. However, Lan Bing replied casually, "I was also poisoned by the devouring world. I know a little about it." The so-called sacred lake was the source of the poison. It was similar in nature to the inverse source crystal. The inverse source crystal was highly concentrated origin energy essence. It was much more effective for origin energy users to use it than to absorb origin energy in the induction cabin. By the same logic, the sacred lake was the unique power warehouse of the devouring world. With it, the devouring world could create an endless army of monsters to provide energy for the people in the devouring world to repair themselves. Of course, the sacred lake's functions were far more than that. It could refine poison, create magic treasures, transform into human figures. These high-level poison techniques couldn't be separated from the sacred lake. Lan Bing explained, "The sacred lake of the devouring world is usually created by the queen. The queen herself is very powerful and can find a good place to refine the sacred lake in the poison cloud devil sea. She can also take the sacred lake away to other star fields. However, the energy consumption is relatively high. This sacred lake's energy is actually very weak." Ding Ming seemed to understand something. 100 years ago, the queen of the devouring world died here. This sacred lake is probably left behind. Lan Bing nodded. "It's not easy for it to operate until today." Isendale said, "Did the demon general we met before also rely on the energy here?" Ding Ming shook her head and said, "No, the liquid in the cave wall is a very good barrier. I checked it when I came down before. First of all, it can block all transmission of signals. Second, it has an activation mechanism that ensures that outsiders can't invade. How could a demon general come here?" Lan Bing said, "Ding Ming, there are many strong enemies up there. The patrol fleet and the devouring world army are in a standoff. I think it might be related to this place. It's just that they won't be able to find it for a while. When she mentioned this, Isendale was a little annoyed. We can't go back to the Federation now. Hiding here isn't a solution. How long can we hide? Lonbing also looked at her. If you're not used to it, you can go back the way you came. After all, where can you go as the daughter of the Rainbow family? Is there anyone who dares to attack you? What do you mean? Isendale was unhappy. Are you trying to drive me away? Then you can dominate Ding Meng? Lan Bing said coldly. Ding Meng and I survived in this kind of environment. We're just afraid that you won't be used to it. Isendale sneered. Why wouldn't I be used to it? The fertile chalk system is such a harsh environment. Ding Meng and I still came back alive. Lan Bing said, Then don't say that we're hiding because we're afraid. Isendale snorted. Have I ever been afraid? Lan Bing said, If you're not afraid, then don't talk nonsense. Seeing the two bickering, Ding Meng had a headache. He quickly waved his hand and said, Stop arguing. Why are you still arguing with each other at a time like this? Isendale raised her chin. Oomph. Lan Bing also turned her head in disdain. Oomph. Ding Meng separated the two and walked to the seven-colored sacred lake. He carefully observed the changes in the lake. The lake water seemed to be a combination of a unique source power, poison, and very strange energy. It was very similar to Lung Yin's aura. Ding Meng suddenly remembered when Lung Yin summoned 7 kills. He also imitated Lung Yin and chanted a lot of spells at the lake. Lan Bing and Isendale were also curious. What trick was this kid playing? Of course, they did not know that he was using telekinesis to establish a connection with the sacred lake. Isendale was stunned. We can establish a telepathic connection? At this time, the light in the lake suddenly became stronger. A gloomy and majestic female voice sounded above the palace. Who are you? Lan Bing and Isendale were shocked. They could hear the voice, but they could not sense the aura or direction. It was like a ghost was speaking. Ding Meng was calmer. Hello, senior. My name is Ding Meng. He spoke in human language. The voice seemed to be silent. After a moment, she replied in human language. Her voice was slightly surprised. I didn't expect you to be a divine light general. Sorry for the disrespect. Why'd you awaken me? If a person from a devouring world dared to call herself a queen, she was undoubtedly a king-level master. Ding Meng was also surprised that the queen recognized him immediately. May I ask which queen of the devouring world are you, senior? The queen said proudly, I am in the sacred realm. I am from a prestigious family. My celestial name is Xian Yuan. Damn, Ding Meng and the other two were really shocked. The legendary immortal elemental queen was indeed still alive. Isendale could not help but say, But they all said that you died in the war 100 years ago. I died? Xian Yuan's voice suddenly became cold. Did Mo Shan of the Holy Grail Federation say that? Or did the people from the devouring world tell you that? Isendale curled her lips. That's what the Federation said. Xian Yuan sneered. I am the heavenly book body. How can the people of the origin energy world destroy me? Lan Bing said, The heavenly book is said to be everywhere, but we can't see you. It's easy to see me. Xian Yuan replied. At this moment, the pool water spun, and the pillar emitted a brilliant light. In the colorful energy pool water, a human-shaped mirror image slowly rose. The queen's figure was actually similar to Lung Yin's. Her retro clothes were embellished with a dark green cloth, and she wore a vine leaf crown on her head. However, her mirror image was very blurry. Her face rippled like waves, but one could still vaguely feel the domineering and majestic aura of the Queen Xian Yuan in the past. She must have been a supreme ruler when she was in charge of the devouring world. Ding Meng suddenly sighed. This is your immortal aperture, isn't it? Even your immortal aperture is so heavily damaged. You're already very weak. Xian Yuan also seemed to be sighing. Back then, in order to cover the retreat of tens of thousands of my elites, I had to deal with the motley crew of the Holy Grail Federation. Unfortunately, I was injured by a villain and was trapped here. Hearing this, Isendale was not very happy. Senior, you were clearly defeated by the experts of the Holy Grail Federation. How did you become a motley crew? Xian Yuan snorted. The origin energy users of the Federation are a motley crew. Am I wrong? Isendale said coldly. The Holy Grail Federation has many talents and experts. Your words are too arbitrary. Xian Yuan seemed to be sizing her up. Little girl, judging from your aura, you're also a battle saint. You should know that 100 years ago, there were less than 200 battle saints in the Holy Grail Federation and the Norse Empire. 200 years ago, I was already the queen of the immortal realm. If your so-called experts are not a motley crew in front of me, then what are they? Isendale was stunned. She was knowledgeable. The queen of the devouring world was far above the warlord level. It should be known that the devouring world's sect leader could challenge a saint without much difficulty. 100 years ago, Queen Xian Yuan was almost invincible in the human world. Could it be that the queen's so-called injury by a villain was not caused by an expert origin energy user? Xian Yuan's gaze fell on Ding Meng again. My little friend Ding Meng, you were able to find the place where my immortal aperture resides. I must have been guided here by your divine light prophet. I've waited for 100 years for the day of my recovery. I thought that some descendant of mine would be grateful for my merit and would come and meet me one day. I didn't expect it to be you. Ding Meng could not help but smile bitterly. He had clearly come here by accident. How did he become guided here? However, according to Star General Mao's description, there were indeed prophets in the Mao Xing civilization. As for the recovery that the queen said, Ding Meng certainly did not believe her. You want me to help you recover? Ding Meng was curious. This question stunned Xian Yuan. She was silent for a long time before she sighed and said, I'm afraid it's impossible for me to recover my original body from 100 years ago. Chapter 733. Xian Yuan's sigh made Ding Meng and the other two feel strange. Ding Meng asked tentatively, Senior, were you injured so badly 100 years ago? Xian Yuan seemed to be silent. The war 100 years ago could have been avoided. It's all my fault for trusting the villain. Weren't you the one who started the war in the devouring world? Isendale asked. Nonsense. Xian Yuan seemed to be angry. As the king of the devouring world, how could I start a war so easily? Isendale was also stunned. What's going on? Xian Yuan explained. All the kings of the devouring world are mutants. The first queen did have deep resentment and had a profound impact on the development of the devouring world. However, not every queen was as fond of fighting and killing as she was. Everyone had their own ideals. When it came to me, I just wanted to develop and grow in peace. 100 years ago, my holy realm and the Spectre family were already quite large, Ding Meng pondered and said. But more than 100 years ago, the Federation and the Empire were at war. Xian Yuan nodded. That's right. The leader of the Spectre family thought that the Federation's army in the north was weak and that it was a good time to go to war. Without the permission of the other sects, he secretly launched a large-scale invasion of the Spectre family and forced the Federation to retreat. The Spectre family of the devouring world was best at using poison and assimilating resources. Therefore, at the beginning of the war, Little Red Riding Hood's poison terrified the Federation. Of course, everyone knew the direction of the war. When the Federation and the Empire signed the Armistice Agreement and recovered, they gathered the troops of the Great Wall in the south to counterattack. The Spectre family naturally could not resist. Xian Yuan continued. The Spectre family was almost wiped out, and I also received a distress signal from the leader of the devouring world. As the master of the devouring world, I naturally could not sit by and watch the family perish. So I rushed to the Zyrtl Star sector to protect the remaining elites and retreat. However, the Federation gathered too many fleets, and I could not resist. After a few exchanges, I was injured. At that time, the main force was retreating on Thousand Sail Star, and the motley crew of the Federation was hot on our trail. However, I never expected that the other sect leaders would suddenly appear on Thousand Sail Star. This group of people actually joined forces to attack me from behind, causing my heavenly book body to be destroyed and my soul to be scattered. Only a trace of spiritual consciousness is left in my immortal aperture. If it were not for the protection of the remaining sacred lake, my soul would have been destroyed. Everyone was stunned. Isendale could not help but sigh. So that's the truth of the devouring world war. But they pushed all the blame to you, saying that you were the one who started the war. Xian Yuan said angrily, "Of course, after losing so many people, how could these people explain themselves to the public? They could only fabricate lies to hide the truth from everyone." Ding Ming suddenly asked, "Is the dreamscape above a formation set up by Senior?" Xian Yuan said, "Yes. I no longer have the strength to call for help. I can only rely on the weak power of the sacred lake to set up my Xian Yuan's dreamscape, allowing people to come into contact with my remnant consciousness in their dreams. If it was a human origin energy user, it would be impossible for them to discover it. If it was a member of my family, it is very likely that they would come to rescue me." Lan Bing said, "But right now, the devouring world army is eyeing Thousand Sail Star Sector covetously. From the looks of it, they are not here to rescue you." Xian Yuan was stunned. "Young lady, can you tell us more about it?" Lan Bing sighed. She could only describe the appearance of the army in detail. Xian Yuan's expression seemed to be a little absent-minded. "You're right. These are not my former subordinates. They must have discovered my existence and rushed to destroy me. As long as I truly die, that group of people can rest easy," Isendale said, "but right now, the patrol fleet in the northern sky is blocking them." Xian Yuan could not help but sigh. She thought back to how she had tried to protect her own kind in the devouring world, but in the end, her own kind had attacked her. Now, her own kind was chasing after her, but the ones protecting her were the Federation's fleet. This was undoubtedly a great irony for the devouring world who had always hated the Federation. Ding Ming sighed. "In that case, you won't be able to escape this calamity?" "No," Xian Yuan denied decisively. "Your arrival has given me hope. Because you are a general of divine light, my soul can rely on you. Even if it cannot be restored for the time being, if you help me return to the devouring world and help me kill the villain, the current unfavorable situation will be reversed. I will have my revenge and no longer have any regrets." To put it bluntly, she hoped that Ding Ming would get her out. However, this was not a small matter. Xian Yuan was now in the state of a broken immortal aperture, but she was still the queen of the devouring world. If such a great demon was released, who knew what would happen in the future? Perhaps it would be an epic disaster for the Federal Empire. The seriousness of this matter was far greater than the danger of the water droplets. From a certain perspective, it was hundreds or even thousands of times greater. Seeing that the three of them were silent, Xian Yuan understood what they were worried about. She took the initiative to explain. "If you help me, I will teach you high-level immortal spells and share the resources of the devouring world. I can help you with many things that you are unable to do. The two corpses on the upper level, aren't they your companions? If you agree to my conditions, I will immediately teach you the secret to help them recall their souls and revive them. Now that they have not been dead for long, there is still a chance for them to be revived. When their souls completely dissipate, even the gods will not be able to save them." Originally, Isendale was still hesitating. When she heard that Yitzi could be revived, she turned her gaze to Ding Ming almost without thinking. Ding Ming also answered without hesitation, "Okay, I agree to your conditions. What should I do now?" Xian Yuan was overjoyed. "Very good. Please step into the sacred lake and slightly operate your divine light energy. You will see it." Following her instructions, Ding Ming slowly walked into the pool and activated the first diamond-shaped origin. In just an instant, the sacred lake flashed wildly. The 16 pillars turned into light forms, and 16 beams of holy light entered Ding Ming's left face. The spear-shaped Maoxing mark was also activated, flashing with white light. At this time, Xian Yuan's mirror image turned into an extremely fine light and entered Ding Ming's face, then disappeared without a trace. At the same time, the palace immediately began to fade. All the light disappeared, and it fell into endless darkness. The stone walls lost their vitality and became gray and dead again. Lan Bing and Isendale had never seen such a situation before. The two of them were dumbfounded. Lan Bing asked with concern, "Ding Ming, Are you okay? Ding Ming waved his hand. Don't worry, I'm fine. At this moment, in his vision, the image of the immortal Yuan king appeared, just like when little Rascal was born. It was a very lifelike mirror image of a small person. She even said, "Little friend, you have the powerful imprint of a divine general in your body. Now you should believe me, right?" Ding Ming had already received a large amount of telepathic information. The reason why the immortal Yuan king chose him was because she had discovered the divine general's imprint on his face from the beginning. This imprint not only restrained her immortal aperture, but also could identify the telepathic information she transmitted. Ding Ming did not say anything and sat down cross-legged on the spot, entering the space of consciousness. The information transmitted by Xian Yuan included a technique called Soul Summoning Spell. This was a high-level technique of the Devouring Realm. If it was judged by the Federation standards, it would be a powerful 7-star technique. Ding Ming not only had to practice it, but he also had to do it quickly, because Guzi's corpse spirit would not be preserved for too long. This technique of the Devouring Realm seemed to be poles apart from the Federation's technique, but it was actually a different approach to the same goal. The Federation's technique focused on building the origin, then forming lines and surfaces between each point, and finally strengthening the rune pattern. On the other hand, the Devouring Realm was the exact opposite. It first cultivated a single line of origin energy, and after the line was strengthened, it then combined the lines and surfaces to form a three-dimensional shape. Finally, it determined the origin at the strongest point of these geometric shapes. In the beginning, humans relied on an endless supply of origin energy, while the Devouring Realm relied on poison. It was only in the later stages of cultivation that the low-level poison would slowly be removed and transformed into demonic energy. Xian Yuan King explained, "You don't need to build a new origin for this soul-summoning spell. Your origin energy is already solid enough, and you also have the support of telekinesis techniques and the support of refined essence. You just need to follow my method of transforming your brain region's waves, and you'll be able to sense all kinds of force fields." She paused for a moment, then sighed and said, "No wonder you are a divine light general. In your current state, if you cultivate in peace for 200 or 300 years, you will be able to command the entire sacred splendor star system. No one will dare to disobey you, and you will be invincible in the world." Her tone was full of emotion. She was obviously envious of Ding Ming's innate talent and strength. Not long after, Ding Ming opened his eyes. "Let's go up and give it a try." The upper floor of the Sacred Lake Palace was still a mess, but Yuan's shoe was gone. Fortunately, the bodies of the Guzi siblings were still there. Xian Yuan said, "Now, close your telekinesis vision and use the technique I taught you. Calm down and sense carefully. Will you be able to see something different?" Ding Ming soon saw that next to the bodies in the distance, there were two balls of blue, misty energy curled up on the ground, like a blurry nebula in the depths of the universe. "Are these the spirits?" Ding Ming asked. Xian Yuan said, "Repair their bodies first. It won't be difficult for you." Ding Ming immediately turned his head and said, "Miss Eisenstein, I will have to trouble you to repair the bodies." Eisenstein practiced a biochemical technique, so she quickly removed the javelin from the Guzi's body, allowing the wounds to heal automatically. Yixi's head also quickly returned to normal. Meanwhile, Ding Ming was guiding the two clusters of energy to slowly merge with the corpse. It was similar to constructing an origin. It required the caster to have perfect control over the spirit body, allowing the spirit body and the corpse to merge with each other. About 3 minutes later, Yixi on the ground opened her big eyes. Guzi also woke up quickly. Ding Ming was overjoyed. This technique was too amazing. It could even revive a dead person. It seemed that saving Xian Yuan was not a waste. Guzi patted his chest. "Didn't I die? How'd I come back to life?" Yixi ran over. "Brother Ding Ming, sister." Eisenstein lowered her head and hugged her. "Thank God, I finally revived you." Xian Yuan said, "Now, suck up the sacred water from the cave and pour it into the sacred lake on this floor. My immortal aperture will be activated." Ding Meng asked curiously. Can the sacred lake here restore your immortal aperture? Xian Yuan said, yes, you can. If you completely activate the water in the pool according to my method, I can absorb the energy and transform into an immortal aperture. But I don't plan to do that. Ding Meng was shocked. What? Xian Yuan explained. After you activate it, the void spirit skates above the devouring realm will immediately sense my presence. With the current situation in the starfield, the two sides will not dare to engage in a large-scale battle. They will definitely send experts down secretly. We will hide in the dark and wait for the opportunity to attack. If you can capture one or two important people alive and sneak into a void spirit's gate during the chaos, we will be saved. Ding Meng was impressed. This devouring realm monster's thought process was very clear and meticulous. It seemed that he was an expert when he was alive. Chapter 734. Xian Yuan continued, but don't be careless. If you save these two ordinary humans and bring these two women with you, they will undoubtedly be a huge burden. Not only will they slow you down, but they will also be easily exposed. I suggest you abandon them. This was indeed the thinking of a superior master. Her strategy was quite resolute. Ding Meng sighed. These two siblings are my family. I can't abandon them. Okay, Xian Yuan had a compromise. But these two women, one of them is ordinary, and the other is too weak. They will be a burden to you. Give them up. Ding Meng rolled his eyes at her. You want me to give up my women? Xian Yuan said disdainfully. There are many good-looking women in the world. When I successfully return to the devouring world, I will find you as many women as you want. You should know that wisdom and courage are often trapped. Those who achieve great things do not care about trifles. Ding Meng was also helpless. She could only brace herself to explain. They are not as simple as women. These two are my wives. Is that so? Xian Yuan compromised again. You humans are really troublesome. If you insist on bringing everyone with you, then I can only say that the risk is increased. Later, you must act neatly and try to avoid being discovered. Ding Meng had to turn his head and transmit Xian Yuan's advice to Lan Bing and Isendale through telepathic thoughts. Isendale was very angry. This queen was indeed not a good person. She actually instigated Ding Meng to abandon everyone. Lan Bing simply established a telepathic link between the three of them to facilitate communication. Her intention was also to monitor Xian Yuan in case she came up with any bad ideas. Ding Meng, you are too much. You are getting more and more insatiable. Isendale was very dissatisfied. When did I become your wife? Ding Meng's eyelids drooped, and he didn't say anything. Right now, he and Xian Yuan had a mutually beneficial relationship. They were trying their best to seek common ground while reserving differences. If he wanted to slip away, he had to rely on Xian Yuan's guidance. If Xian Yuan wanted to return, he had to rely on his martial strength. Lan Bing was also a little unhappy. Well, since you used the term madam, then let me ask you, am I the madam of the first branch? I should be qualified, right? Well, Ding Meng hesitated. Forget about the first wife. How about the second wife? You. Lan Bing was furious. I'm a number two? What do you mean? Didn't you give your first time to me? Who was the first branch? Dai? This was a bit shocking. Isendale could not stay calm. Then how many branches do I belong to? The pitiful straight alloy man was still too honest. It's considered a fourth household, right? What? Isendale was also furious. It's fine if you have multiple wives, but I'm not even your third wife. What do you mean? Of course not. Ding Meng still had some feelings for Lu Qing in his heart. Lu Qing had given up everything and was willing to go with him. Moreover, she had followed him in almost desperate situations. It was a pity that there was still no news of her. Lan Bing's voice sounded like she was laughing. You actually have someone else as your third wife. I really underestimated you. I didn't expect you to have so many hidden things. Isendale was angry. Sure enough, there are not many men who are not fickle. I'm not the real madam of the fourth household. If you marry me officially, are you sure you can afford the dowry of taking me as your concubine? Lan Bing agreed. Yes, the young lady of the Rainbow family can't lose face at her wedding. The fourth household is already like this. Let's see how you deal with the first few households. The two women started arguing again. Ding Ming could only close his eyes and close his mouth. Xian Yuan looked at him playfully. Now you know the trouble of bringing a woman around? Ding Ming looked at her. You're talking as if you're not a woman. Hearing this, Xian Yuan almost exploded. I'm not going to argue with you. Time is tight. Let your brother and sister lead the way. Xian Yuan's prediction was completely correct. At this moment, in the desert village, dozens of teleportation arrays were taking shape. The white teleportation arrays connected in a straight line to the depths of the polluted area. At the same time, the swamps on the other side of the devouring realm continued to form huge pools, and rows of strange and ferocious monsters were also created. The fleets of the two sides did not clash, but each side's army was teleported down. Not to mention Ding Ming's perception. Just with Lan Bing's general level strength, she could sense thousands of energy fluctuations on the ground. The aura of origin ability users, the energy fluctuations of science and technology, the crystal energy fluctuations of large machinery, the violent aura of the devouring world monsters. There was bound to be an unprecedentedly fierce battle in the underground ruins of Thousand Sails Star. But I don't sense the aura of experts. Lan Bing was puzzled. She was definitely not as experienced as Isendale in this aspect. Isendale said, "Do you really think that these people are all ordinary soldiers?" Definitely not. There must be an expert hiding among them who is controlling their aura. Think about it. Yu Wenshu's origin energy was crippled by Ding Ming, but he was still able to escape. The Shenghao Corporation must have been alerted. Even if they sent experts over from Saint Splendor, they should have arrived by now. Lan Bing's expression froze. Isendale's analysis was undoubtedly more reasonable. Ding Ming said, Yu Wenshu and Yu Anjie shouldn't have been able to find the underground ruins so quickly. I'm sure that the Shenghao Corporation must have bypassed the patrol fleet and landed directly on Thousand Sails Star. Lan Bing suddenly said, "As far as I know, the Shenghao Corporation, in addition to the Blue Moon Division, the Rainbow Division, the Bramble Division, and the Thousand Illusions Division are all on the move." Isendale suddenly realized something. Then how did Mu Chun find the Sacred Lake first? Lan Bing's eyes lit up. I understand. He's the Yu family's mole in the military. Ding Ming nodded. Now, we just need to find the Shenghao Corporation's landing point or teleportation point. Our chances will undoubtedly be much higher. Lan Bing said, I followed Yu Anjie here from the patrol fleet. Where are the specific coordinates? Ding Ming asked. Lan Bing said, in a church in a town. It seems that many pirates died there. Ding Ming and Isendale glanced at each other. There was no doubt in their eyes that they were in big trouble. That place was definitely heavily guarded right now. Xian Yuan suddenly said, we don't need to go there. Let's go in the opposite direction. Why? Ding Ming and the other two asked in unison. Xian Yuan's tone was very confident. Whenever the Devouring World and the Holy Grail Federation fight, the ground forces of the Devouring World will always be more proactive. If there really is an origin ability expert, the Devouring World won't send ordinary soldiers to die. There will definitely be corresponding reconnaissance information. Ding Ming was the first to react. We just need to ambush them halfway. Xian Yuan nodded. Yes, that's what I meant. At the same time, on the first floor of the town's church, the exhausted Yu Wenshu was placed on a chair. A large group of people surrounded him. Everyone had a look of disbelief on their faces. Was this Ding Ming really that heaven-defying to be able to injure Elder Yu to this extent? Brother Wenshu, how do you feel after taking my chi recovery pill? The person who asked the question was also an old man. However, this person was hale and hearty and looked very well maintained. He looked like a middle-aged man. Brother Faley, I can't thank you enough. If you need anything in the future, please don't hesitate to ask me, Yu Wenshu replied, panting. He didn't dare reveal his true condition to these people. A warlord-level powerhouse had been beaten to the point of being an ordinary person. This result was worse than directly killing him. After all, he had used up so many precious resources of the Shenghao group over the years. If the boss found out that he had become a cripple, What use would he have for him? CF Faley was very polite. Brother Wenshu, we're all family. There's no need to be so formal. Is this Ding Ming really that terrifying? I was too careless. Yu Wenshu still didn't tell the truth. Although he was strong, his combat ability was actually very weak. Just as Ding Ming had said, he was a freak who was half human and half monster. How could he possibly display the true strength of an origin ability expert? We must kill Ding Ming. We must. We must. We must. Someone in the crowd shouted. It sounded like someone was crying. Everyone turned around and saw the furious Yu Onjie waving his fists in the middle of the hall. It looked like he couldn't wait to beat Ding Ming to death. CF Faley sighed. You guys help young Master Jie back to the starship to rest. His mental condition isn't very good right now. Everyone secretly sighed. Actually, Yu Onjie had a lot of prestige in the Shanghao group. This young master of the Yu family was very low-key and down-to-earth. He was very respectful to his seniors and usually fulfilled their requests. The rarest thing was that Yu Onjie didn't have the common problem of womanizing. He was deeply in love with Lan Bing. However, now that they heard that Lan Bing was having an affair with Ding Ming, everyone immediately felt a sense of hatred for a common enemy. CF Faley pondered and said, Everyone, since we're all here on the boss's orders, what do you think? Based on the current situation, we must first find Ding Ming and Lan Bing before making a decision. An old woman in a red robe replied, The military is watching us like a tiger watching its prey. The old monsters from the devouring world won't just sit by and watch. We must go down to the ruins before they do. CF Faley frowned. But I don't think Ding Ming is stupid enough to stay in the ruins and wait for people to find him. He has already offended so many powerful families. No matter how powerful he is, he can't go against everyone. The old woman said, We've already sent so many people. Hasn't the Starbao Corporation made a move yet? CF Faley pondered and said, Mingling, I think it's best if we split up. You take some people to the ruins and try not to clash with the devouring world. It's best if you can bring back Ding Ming and Lan Bing, but if you can't kill them on the spot and get what the boss wants. Su Mingling said, No problem, Brother Faley. CF Faley said, I'll take some people to the contaminated area in the north. Su Mingling asked, Why is that? CF Faley said, Because I think you're right. Something this big has happened, but the Ling family hasn't reacted at all. There's something fishy about this. If the Starbao Corporation had reacted, they wouldn't have acted in a human-controlled area. Su Mingling immediately understood. Right now, the northern and southern hemispheres of Thousand Sail Star were on equal footing. The devouring world army wouldn't dare extend their tentacles to the south, and the patrol fleet wouldn't dare scan the north with their radars. Taking advantage of the subtle psychological differences between the two sides, if Sheng Hao and the Starbao Corporation were secretly operating, then the neutral zone would be the best place to teleport. If the Starbao Corporation really wanted to send someone over, then they would definitely be targeting Ding Ming. If they could find the Starbao Corporation, then they wouldn't be far from finding Ding Ming. Moving in from both ends would undoubtedly be safer. We'll do as you say, Brother Faley, Su Mingling answered decisively. Chapter 735. The night on Thousand Sails Star often lasted for several days. Under the night sky, a man in a military uniform was running in the half-desert, half-swamp wilderness. Although Mu Chun was not a battle sage, his speed was still extremely fast. His mission was now complete. All he needed to do was to reach the designated location and teleport back to the planet destroyer. The rest would be left to the experts of Sheng Hao Corporation. The fixed teleportation coordinates are in a small valley in the contaminated area. This is not the initial location set by the mothership of the patrol fleet, but the coordinates that Mu Chun personally chose because the commander of the planet destroyer in the sky was a student of his when he was still an instructor in the military academy. Running to a hill made of rocks, Mu Chun activated the quantum signal transmitter on his wrist device. However, the transmission light that he expected did not appear. The valley was still gloomy and dark. Just when he thought that the device had malfunctioned, a cold voice sounded. Little Mu, the coordinates I set for you don't seem to be here, right? Mu Chun was shocked. When he turned around, he couldn't help but turn pale with fright. "Sir, why are you here?" With her hands behind her back, Lu Ting slowly walked out of the darkness behind him like a ghost. "The military is about to take action. Why didn't you send a map and a warning signal back to the mothership? Why did you fire it at the town? Do you know that your actions may cause heavy casualties to the soldiers on the front line?" Mu Chan forced a smile. "Sir, I've already found Ding Ming. I've also located his location." Lu Ting's face was cold, and she did not say anything. Mu Chun continued to explain. "Sir, I know this is against the rules, but I just want to find the target faster." He already had a bad feeling when he said this. For soldiers with energy guns walked out from behind Lu Ting. "Have you ever thought about why I came here personally?" Lu Ting stared at him. Mu Chun did not dare to meet her majestic gaze. Lu Ting's tone was a little sad. "Mu Chun, you disappoint me. You've been with me for so many years, and you've always followed the rules. Why did you accept benefits from Shanghao Corporation?" Only then did Mu Chun raise his head in horror. Lu Ting said sternly. "Officer Haodong has come to the mothership personally and taken over the entire fleet. He's looking at you now. What else do you have to say?" Beads of sweat trickled down Mu Chun's forehead. He could not utter a single word. Lu Ting waved her hand. "Take him up and deal with him according to military law. No one is allowed to plead for mercy." Several soldiers immediately stepped forward, grabbed him, and locked his hands and feet with energy chains. The teleportation circle soon opened, and a beam of light rose vertically into the sky. Mu Chun and the others were immediately teleported back to the planet destroyer above. At this moment, in the command hall of the Golden Eagle mothership, which was millions of kilometers away, Haodong was watching the real-time image on the radar. Then, he turned his head and said to a beautiful lady beside the main control console, "Sister One, are you satisfied with the results?" This lady was none other than the second young mistress of the Starbao Corporation, Ling Xingwen. She had received a notice from the headquarters and had teleported over as quickly as possible. Moreover, she had also brought along a large group of people. Ling Xingwen said with a sullen face, "Shanghao spy actually sneaked into the military. Dongzi, it seems that your personnel management needs to be strengthened." Haodong showed a bright smile. With Officer Lu Ting personally taking action, no one can escape from under her nose. Ling Xingwen nodded. "I hope things go smoothly. I put down the things at hand and rushed over as soon as possible." Haodong said, "You can rest assured about this. I have always carried out the orders of the higher-ups very thoroughly. You have carried out the orders of the transit string very thoroughly, right?" Ling Xingwen knew what was going on. She said calmly, "Dongzi, our families are not outsiders. In my eyes, I have long regarded you as a family member. Xing Xian is devoted to his career. He is usually too busy and doesn't have much time. As his elder sister, I naturally have to ask more about your matters." Haodong smiled. "Then I'll have to trouble Sister Wen to put in a good word for me in front of Uncle Ling." Although he was smiling, in fact, he knew that Ling Xingwen had come purely for Ding Ming this time. Other people's target was the energy source in Ding Ming's hands, but Ling Xingwen's target was Ding Ming himself. Ding Ming had made a big fuss in the Flying Star City, which was nothing in the eyes of people at their level. However, Ling Xingwen had been knocked out by Ding Ming at the engagement ceremony. This had become an after-dinner joke in the upper-class circle of the Federation. Everyone knew that Ling Xingwen was the second young mistress of the Ling family. She usually did things in a domineering manner and was very concerned about her reputation. Unexpectedly, she had suffered a big setback in the Flying Star City, which made her feel very embarrassed. Later, Ding Ming joined the Shanghao Corporation. Others might have been a little wary of him, but she was even more furious. "You're deliberately going against me, aren't you?" Later, Ding Ming stole the energy source in the fertile Chalk Galaxy, seriously injured Ling Xingqi, killed many of her elders, and ruined the plans of the Starbao Corporation's headquarters. Whether it was in the eyes of Ling Xingqi or herself, this was absolutely intolerable. This Ding Ming had to die. Now, with the secret operation of the transit string, Ling Xingwen and Haodong had gathered on the mothership of the patrol fleet with only one target, Ding Ming. No one was allowed to stand in their way, no matter who they were, even if they were an expert from the Shanghao Corporation or an old monster from the Devouring Realm. Anyone who stood in their way would die. In the small valley of the border area, Lu Ting had already stood still amidst a pile of rocks. Then, she secretly operated the origin in her body, gathering the origin energy in her brain. Invisible ripples of energy began to spread in all directions. On the radar screen of the mothership, Lu Ting was as still as a rock as a statue, but at this moment, her field of vision had undergone a tremendous change. Everything in the world had turned into tiny, densely packed stars, which then spread out one by one in a grid. It could be seen that the area covered was precisely the entire border area. This area could not be considered large, but it was definitely not small. Her train of thought was undoubtedly correct because she also felt that Ding Ming and the others would not be waiting to die in the underground ruins, so she shifted the search area to the surface. The probability of finding them would be higher. Under the cover of the grid-like field of vision, all the people, objects, and scenery were not analyzed. Instead, they constantly spread out and searched in all directions. She could see two dark red figures drifting out from the direction of the town, moving towards the depths of the contaminated area at an extremely fast speed. Lu Ting immediately said in a deep voice, "Officer Haodong, coordinates 2050 3D, coordinates 75 35 7F, two unidentified people have appeared. We highly suspect that they are experts from the Shanghao Corporation, requesting the quantum radar to confirm their identities." The order was transmitted back to the mothership, and the reconnaissance image on the screen surprisingly locked onto the whereabouts of Xie Feili and Su Mingling's group. Ling Xingwen sneered disdainfully. "It seems that Yu Tianlin has put in a lot of effort this time." Xie Feili and the others probably did not even dream that they would be discovered as soon as they moved out, because they did not expect that there would be a reconnaissance expert like Lu Ting in the military team. Lu Ting's field of vision was also a telekinesis field of vision. Her telekinesis belonged to the psychic category of sensing, which was completely different from illusions. Illusions were used to interfere with a person's brain, while sensing was used to capture a person's bioelectric waves. This was an extremely advanced technique of the psychic category, telepathy. It must be known that origin ability users could sense energy fluctuations and auras, so if the opponent was an expert who controlled their origin ability and concealed their aura, you would not be able to detect them at all. On the other hand, the starship's radar could provide thermal imaging, ion scanning, and quantum detection to detect all energy activity. But if the target was hidden in complex terrain or was blocked by a large number of obstacles, the radar would not be able to detect them at all. However, telepathy was different. It did not have any data analysis, and it completely captured the target's emotions to determine the target's location. For example, when Xie Feili and the others set out from the town, everyone was a little angry, which immediately appeared as a faint red color in Lu Ting's field of vision. Moreover, their speed was so fast that there was no other explanation other than the people from the Shanghao Corporation. Therefore, no matter how powerful the opponent was, no matter how good they were at concealing themselves, there was almost no way they could hide in front of this divine technique. The logic was very simple. Who could guarantee that their emotions would not be affected at all? When the Devouring World War broke out, Lu Ting was a frontline reconnaissance soldier. At that time, she had not yet cultivated this divine technique. It was only later that she went to Zhanjing College to further her studies and awaken her talent in this area. Finally, she mastered this high-level technique and became an ace scout. Only then was she recognized by Haodong's sect and was sent to the northern horizon as the commander of a patrol fleet. At the same time, deep in the polluted area, Ding Ming's group was also moving stealthily through the swamp grass. Even Gu Zi and Yitzi were very careful. Everyone was practically holding their breaths as they walked through the forest. This was actually done to take care of the siblings. They were ordinary humans, after all, and their physical strength was limited. They could not move quickly but walking like this was still extremely safe. Yitzi was still very naive. She asked in a low voice, "Brother Ding Ming, if we leave here, where do you think we will go to live in the future?" Ding Ming wanted to tell her that they would probably go to a dangerous place like the poison cloud sea in the devouring world. However, he was afraid that Guzi and Yitzi would not understand at the moment, so he changed his words. "Let's go to the Holy Grail Federation and find Sister Heezy." Yitzi suddenly looked happy. "Really? Can you find her?" Ding Ming smiled. "Of course. As long as Sister Heezy is still alive, I will definitely find her." Guzi also showed a simple and honest smile. "Sister Heezy must still be alive. I knew she was capable since I was young." Every time he saw the smiles of the siblings, Ding Ming felt warm in his heart. Even Lan Bing and Eisendale had a trace of a smile on their faces. At this moment, Ding Ming suddenly felt a chill, and his heart palpitated for no reason. There seemed to be a light breeze in the air, and it was as if a pair of eyes glanced at him in the wind and swept past him, causing his hair to stand on end in an instant. This feeling could only be caused by the peeping spell in his blue spirit spell. Of course, he certainly did not know that the moment he and his group had a trace of joy, it was immediately captured by Lu Ting in the distance. Ding Ming suddenly stopped. Eisendale was puzzled. "What's wrong?" Ding Ming's face was as dark as water. "We've been exposed." Chapter 736. When Ding Ming said that he had been exposed, he spread out his telekinesis vision and followed the traces left behind by the wind. He did not see Lu Ting. What he saw was a group of people running quickly. He then transmitted the images he captured to the telekinesis model. Lan Bing cried out, "It's Mr. Xie Feili." Ding Ming did not know much about the famous masters of the Federation, but Eisendale explained in a low voice, "It's him." Seeing their serious expressions, Ding Ming guessed that this person must be someone important. "What do you mean?" Lan Bing sighed. "He's an outstanding figure among the Federation's origin ability users. He became famous during the war with the Norse Empire. More than 100 years ago, the Federation and the Empire were in a stalemate at the Great Wall Star Zone in the south. He led his people to defeat dozens of battle saints and battle lords from the Empire, forcing the Empire's army to retreat strategically. However, in that battle, he and an expert from the Empire were both injured. After that, he returned to the Federation and disappeared." Eisendale said, "That's right. He didn't participate in the Devouring World War. My grandfather mentioned him before. He said that he was comparable to Mo Shan and the others and was regarded as a war hero. However, he was recovering from his injuries. There were also rumors that he went to the Sheng Hao group later." This was obviously directed at Lan Bing. Lan Bing nodded. "I've heard about it too, but it seems that the rumors are true." There was no doubt that the real power of the Sheng Hao group had arrived. However, how did Xie Feili and the others discover his location so accurately? Ding Ming had already released his telekinesis string and started to build a force field. Soon, he discovered that Lu Ting was also approaching this place from the small valley. The moment he discovered her, Lu Ting suddenly felt a sharp pain in her eyes. She could not help but close her eyes and forcibly stop using her telekinesis to investigate. Ding Ming's telekinesis was like a powerful counterattack. It was as powerful as a mountain. No wonder the Federation wanted to classify Ding Ming as a Class A criminal. There was a reason for that. Ding Ming's strength was truly admirable. Currently, Ding Ming and his party were on a rocky mountain. The slope was not high, only a few dozen meters. At the foot of the mountain were dense forests and swamps, and all around them was wilderness. Ding Ming glanced around and said, "Lan Bing, please take care of Guzi easy. If the situation is dangerous, follow Miss Eisen." Lan Bing understood what he meant. No matter what kind of opponent the Federation sent, they wouldn't dare to do anything to Eisendale. She was actually very safe by Eisendale's side. However, Ding Ming was about to face a large number of enemies who were even more powerful than Feng Shu. Ding Ming simply sat down on a large rock at the top of the mountain and closed his eyes to rest. Xian Yuan admired his calmness in the face of danger. As a matter of fact, Ding Ming had a new concern now, because she had discovered with her psychic vision that CF Fei Li, Lu Ting, and the others were all carrying all kinds of scanning devices and crystal cameras. Obviously, they were maintaining contact with the starship in the sky. In other words, this was equivalent to a live broadcast. Everything that happened on Thousand Sail Star would be recorded in real time, and the patrol fleet would be able to see it simultaneously. If they really fought, he could use the divine light energy, but he could not use the divine light equipment. Once the divine light weapons were exposed to the public, it would be too troublesome. Since you don't want to expose your identity as a divine light general, why don't you try my world-devouring immortal technique? Xian Yuan reminded him. This is a high-level martial art created by Xian Yuan of the Sacred Realm. Whether you can understand it or not will depend on your luck. It was impossible to master a martial art in such a short time. He could only try his best to digest it and learn as much as he could. 10 minutes later, CF Fei Li's team of 20 people was the first to arrive at the mountain. Although he had already learned about Ding Ming from the photon computer, CF Fei Li could not help but reveal a trace of surprise when he saw Ding Ming in person. Ding Ming was much younger than the image he saw in hologram. In his eyes, this was clearly a child. However, this child's accomplishments were so impressive. He killed more than 10 battle monarchs with a single sword strike, destroyed several of the Starbao Corporation's bases, eliminated Wu Songjin's old buddies in the Fertile Chalk system, and even seriously injured Ling Xingqi. Even Yuan Shu had fallen at the hands of this kid. However, seeing Ding Ming sitting at the top of the mountain with a calm expression, CF Fei Li could not help but reveal a look of admiration. This was what a true expert should look like. "Master, what are we going to do now?" someone asked. CF Fei Li waved his hand. "You all stay at the bottom of the mountain or nearby." That person was startled. "What?" CF Fei Li said meaningfully. "Among the younger generation of origin ability users, you all do have the qualifications to be proud. However, this young man is not as easy to deal with as you think." That person was not convinced. "Isn't he just the security secretary of the Blue Moon branch?" CF Fei Li sighed. "Yes, the Blue Moon branch is indeed a small branch, but all of you together are not his match. Do you understand what I mean?" Everyone's expression froze. CF Fei Li rarely spoke like this. If they were not his match, there was only one word to describe the outcome: death. CF Fei Li waved his hand. "Everyone, go back and tell your master Su to meet up with me here." After everyone left, CF Fei Li slowly walked up the mountain. Soon, he arrived at a place about 50 meters away from Ding Ming. This place was filled with sharp stone pillars that pointed upwards like the fangs of a monster. It was frighteningly dense. CF Fei Li stood in the middle of the empty space. He was a veteran and was very experienced in dealing with situations like this. He took a deep breath and decided to use peaceful means before resorting to force. "Hello, Ding Ming." Ding Ming opened his eyes. "Thank you, Senior," CF Fei Li said. "I wouldn't dare to refer to myself as Senior." He didn't see Ding Ming as a junior at all. Instead, he treated Ding Ming as an equal. They were all at the same level, and what determined seniority wasn't age, but strength. Ding Ming nodded. Normally, if someone was polite to him, he would be polite to them too. "Senior Xie, are you here on behalf of Sheng Hao or for yourself?" CF Fei Li said, "Both. To be honest, I'm not the only one who is interested in the item in your hand. I believe that everyone above the monarch rank is interested in it." Ding Ming did not say anything. CF Fei Li continued. "But I also know that neither you nor I have the right to own such a precious treasure. This is not a matter of you or me, but a matter of luck." Ding Ming agreed with this statement. After all, as an expert at this level, there were many things that he could see more clearly than the average person. Fighting and killing was the worst choice. Solving problems was the best solution. Ding Ming stood up. "Senior Xie, do you have any good suggestions?" CF Fei Li said in a low voice. "Sheng Hao, Xing Hong, and the military have found you first, but this is not the end. This is only the beginning. If you continue to stay here, Thousand Sail Star will become the target of many powerful forces in 48 hours at the latest. Even the upper echelons of the Federation and the Empire will turn their attention to this place. Not to mention, The Devourer Corps will also be on the move. When that happens, no matter who stays here, their safety will not be guaranteed. Ding Ming nodded. Not only did CF Faley's words make sense, but he was also very clear-headed. CF Faley continued, "You are now a bomb that can explode at any time. I suggest that you leave the Zeta 2 star field as soon as possible and leave this dangerous place." Ding Ming looked at him. "You want me to return to Shanghao?" CF Faley said, "Based on the current situation, Shanghao is the organization that can protect you the most. At the very least, their ability to protect you is the best." Ding Ming said, "I believe that." CFA Lee's face softened a lot. "I can also guarantee you that the things in your hands, you can use them yourself. Shenghao's higher-ups will not make things difficult for you. With my and Su Mingling's reputation, I believe that Mr. Yu will listen to my advice." Ding Ming said doubtfully, "I find that hard to believe." CF Faley's expression did not change. "I made this decision because I do not want you to fall into the hands of Xinghong Corporation. This is the situation that Shanghao does not want to see." Ding Ming pondered for a moment and said, "With your reputation, I'm well aware that you wouldn't joke about something like this. Unfortunately, you forgot something. You were indeed able to find me with your strength, but you shouldn't have been able to find me in such a short period of time." CF Faley's expression suddenly changed. He said in a low voice, "I really did not expect Chief Commander Liu to personally teleport here. I was indeed curious just now. How did Ding Ming get exposed so quickly? So, it was you who guided the energy waves here." Lu Ting walked out from the darkness behind him with a bitter smile. "I thought that I could hide from everyone by walking up the mountain. However, in front of these two masters, nothing can be hidden." She seemed to be complimenting Ding Ming and Su Mingling, but she was actually hinting at her own ability. CF Faley was silent. He said, "I have heard that Zhanjing College trains all kinds of geniuses. Today, I see that the rumors are true. Boss Lu's telepathy must have reached the returning realm, right?" Lu Ting said modestly, "Not at all. This is nothing in front of Master Xie." CF Faley looked at the ground, and his eyes became deep. "It seems that Mu Chun has been dealt with according to military law." Lu Ting's expression was a bit unnatural. A soldier should obey orders and be loyal to his duty. If he violated the rules, he should be punished accordingly. CF Faley suddenly sneered. "If Boss Lu can come down to the ground, it means that there's a higher-ranking officer taking over. If I'm not wrong, it should be the Hao family's third young master. He's someone who's close to the Xinhong group. I wonder which young lady of the Ling family is giving orders on the fleet?" As soon as he finished speaking, two bright spots of light appeared in the darkness behind Lu Ting. The spots of light expanded in all directions, and two curved shadow teleportation arrays were instantly formed. It was obvious that the people of the patrol fleet had sent them here. Ding Ming couldn't help but smile at CF Faley. "Do you understand now? It's not that I don't want to leave this place, but I can't." CF Faley also smiled bitterly. "It's not that the Starbao Corporation didn't react, but they let the Shanghao Corporation take the lead. Their backup plan is here waiting for you." Chapter 737. A man and a woman walked out of the two teleportation arrays. The man was obviously quite old, with deep wrinkles on his face. However, he was dressed in a very youthful manner. He was actually wearing a t-shirt, a hood, and casual pants. Overall, he looked rather nondescript. The woman was the complete opposite of him. Her face was pretty, and she looked young, but she was dressed in a very mature manner. A white shawl was draped over her gorgeous dress, giving her an air of nobility and grace. This woman also had a very eye-catching characteristic, and that was her head of silver hair. Her white hair was even faintly sparkling. The man and woman's auras were extremely astonishing. Even Ding Ming couldn't accurately identify them. Xian Yuan had already secretly spoken. Her tone was somewhat surprised. It's only been a century, and the Holy Grail Federation has become so powerful. Two random origin ability users have actually reached such a level. Ding Ming inwardly thought that these two people weren't just randomly sent out. They definitely had a great background. In fact, he still had a question in his mind. Chu Ing transmission could teleport 2 or more people at once, but right now, there were 2 teleportation arrays. Could it be that these 2 people had been teleported from different starships? When he saw this woman, even Xie Fei couldn't help but be slightly startled. He revealed a polite smile. So it's big sister Fong Lin. It's been a long time. Fong Lin casually waved her hand. There was no trace of politeness on her face. Brother Fei, we're here today, so there's no need for pleasantries. We've crossed paths before, so I still hope that we can meet each other politely and part peacefully. That's the best outcome. Xie Fei's smile immediately disappeared. This demoness actually dared to say something like that. Things were getting a lot more complicated now. Ding Meng stood there without batting an eyelid. He could tell that this woman called Fong Lin was from the Starbao Corporation. The reason was simple. The man was standing next to Lu Ting. This indirectly meant that Fong Lin had been teleported from the Starbao Corporation starship, while the man had most likely come from the military starship. Fong Lin raised her chin. Apprehending Class 8 criminals of the Federation is a matter for the military. It's best if we don't interfere. Xie Fei cursed inwardly. She was implying that Sheng Hao's people should not act recklessly, and that it would be best for Lu Ting and Jia Dao to deal with Ding Meng. This was a huge threat, and Xie Fei had no choice but to speak up. Sister Fong, this is a serious matter. Please think twice before you act. Fong Lin asked, Brother Fei, are you trying to stop the military from enforcing the law? Xie Fei lowered his head. I don't have that much courage, but as a citizen of the Federation, it's my duty to help the military, so I have to help the military. Fong Lin immediately sensed that something was wrong, but it was already too late. Xie Fei had already made his move. You wanted to use the military to restrain him, but in the end, he took the initiative to make things difficult for you. As expected of someone who had been in the Jianghu for many years, he was very experienced. Xie Fei's body shot up into the air like a cannonball, and his elbow whistled through the air towards Ding Meng's face. Under the night sky, he looked like a leopard leaping towards its prey. Based on his own assessment of Ding Meng, Xie Fei knew that this punch would not be able to defeat Ding Meng, but he still infused a lot of strength into his fist. There was no other reason than to push Ding Meng back with a single punch. I don't care how you end up, but I can't let you fall into the hands of Fong Lin and the others. This punch could be said to be a wide and deep frontal attack, the purpose of which was to intimidate the opponent. Who would have thought that Ding Meng would not dodge at all? As soon as the fist came, he stretched out his left hand and casually caught it, then took advantage of the momentum to push it back. With a whoosh, Xie Fei almost floated back to his original position. Lu Ting and Jia Dao were shocked, and Fong Lin's gaze was a bit strange. Everyone present was a true expert. Although Xie Fei's punch seemed ordinary, it was actually very powerful. This was because at their level, their attacks were not much different from ordinary people's. It seemed like there was no energy fluctuation, but in fact, the origin energy was completely confined within the fist. Only when the fist hit the target would there be an effect. In other words, it did not waste any extra energy. As for the kind of battle where the earth cracked and the sun and moon lost their light, it was a situation where both sides had used all their strength and could no longer control their energy. However, Ding Meng was able to catch it and even pushed Xie Fei back to his original position. This proved that not only was Ding Meng's vision sharp and accurate, but his control of his strength was also very precise. Fong Lin smiled. Interesting. Shua, an afterimage swept out. Someone else moved. This time, it was Jia Dao who charged towards Ding Meng at an extremely fast speed. It seemed like he was striking out with a single palm, but his palm seemed to twist into a claw and then into a fist. The frequency of the claw change was extremely fast, and at the same time, it was accompanied by a fierce wind. Before the person arrived, Ding Meng could already feel that the wind in front of him was very oppressive. This pressure caused his vision to become somewhat blurry and distorted. This time, he could not take it head-on. Ding Meng decisively retreated. As he retreated, Jia Dao's claw suddenly rose up. With a boom, A large hole was blasted open in the ground, and countless sand and stones were sent flying. Jia Dao, who was charging forward, raised his claws several times in succession. The ground where Ding Meng had retreated began to rumble and explode, and the sand and stones that were sent flying formed a mass of black chaos in the air. Jia Dao's figure flashed again, and his entire person suddenly flashed forward for a large distance. Then, with a single palm strike, this mass of chaos, which was a mixture of various origin forces and sand and stones, whizzed towards Ding Meng, who was retreating rapidly. When Ding Meng saw that this ball of energy was coming at him too stealthily, he had no way of retreating. He gathered his strength and struck out with his palm, sending out a fiery red half-moon of origin energy. This time he was wrong. As soon as the origin force came into contact with the chaos made a muffled bang sound and turned into countless striped ropes that shrouded over. This hard system origin force was incomparably flexible. It was like an energy chain that tightly bound Ding Meng's limbs. At this moment, Jia Dao's figure appeared behind Ding Meng like a ghost, and his palm struck Ding Meng's back. Boom! A large part of the flat ground on the top of the mountain collapsed. Jia Dao returned to his original position. He had used transient steps to return. Ding Meng also returned to his original position, but he slid back while half kneeling on the ground. Ding Meng supported himself with one hand and stared at the four people in the distance like a wolf eyeing its prey. It was reasonable to say that Jia Dao should be satisfied with his successful attack, but now the expressions of the four people were not good. They were unprecedentedly serious. If an ordinary expert had been hit by Jia Dao's attacks, they would have been tied up tightly and begging for mercy on the ground. However, Ding Meng not only shattered the origin force binding him, but also seemed to be uninjured. Fong Lin had never looked directly at Ding Meng. At this moment, she began to examine this young man. Previously, the higher-ups of Star Rainbow had told her that the young miss and the others had died in the hands of Ding Meng. She did not believe it at all. Now, she gradually began to believe it. Wu Cangjin and the other old servants had really died in the hands of this person. At this moment, Jia Dao glared and shouted sternly, "The military is pursuing a murderer. You dare to arrest him?" Ding Meng felt a surge of anger for no reason. "When did I become a murderer?" Jia Dao said sternly. "You killed more than 10 battle saints of the Star Rainbow Corporation. The evidence is irrefutable. If you're not a murderer, then what are you?" Ding Meng said in a low voice, "They wanted to kill me and rob me. That's a matter of course. But I was forced to fight back. That's a crime." "Is it your logic? How dare you?" Jia Dao said angrily. "You dare to question the certification of the Federation's authority?" Ding Meng did not reply. He took a deep breath and forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart. He decisively flew out and raised his hand. His hand immediately ignited with a deep blue origin flame. The energy of this origin flame was so strong that it instantly ignited the nearby rugged rocks. The entire mountain peak was engulfed in blue flames. Fong Lin, Xie Feili, and Lu Ting reacted quickly and quickly retreated. In the blink of an eye, they were more than 100 meters away. Jia Dao waved his hand in front of him, and a golden wall of holy splendor immediately erected in front of him. Ding Meng's movement was too fierce. His hand blade was so fast that even he could not retract it. With a bang, it cut into the wall of holy splendor. With a boom, the wall of holy splendor, which was originally like an iron bastion, was directly cut into countless stars. Now it looked like a layer of soft gauze. The hand blade cut into the gauze effortlessly. Not good. Jia Dao felt that he could barely open his eyes. Ding Meng's aura had increased explosively in an instant. He subconsciously stretched out his arms and used his wrists to clamp Ding Meng's wrists. At least, he thought that he had clamped them. Who knew that there was no origin flame on the hand blade? It was empty without any fluctuations. He knew that he had been tricked, but it was too late. Ding Meng kicked towards the sky, and the arch of his foot hit him squarely on the chin. Jia Dao was directly kicked into the air by this kick. He flipped 1,080 degrees in the air before he landed and stood firm. In fact, he did not really stand firm. When his boots stepped on the ground, a kacha-kacha sound was produced. It was obvious that Ding Meng's kick was quite powerful. He had no choice but to channel the remaining force into the ground. Ding Meng stared at him from afar and said word by word, "There's nothing that I don't dare to do." Jia Dao did not dare to be angry now. As one of Haodong's subordinates, he actually could not catch a 30-year-old young man. This was not embarrassing himself, but embarrassing Commander Haodong. As expected, in the command room of the Golden Eagle mothership, Ling Xingwen could not help but look at Haodong when he saw the scene of the battle on the mountaintop. This Ding Meng is still as arrogant as ever. It seems that your people don't have any good ideas. Haodong smiled gently. This is just a warm-up. The best part is yet to come. As they were talking, Xian Yuan suddenly said, "Ding Meng, you might have fallen into their trap." Ding Meng was a little surprised. "Oh," Xian Yuan said in a low voice, "use the soul summoning spell that I taught you. Open your Xian Yuan vision and see if there's something different that's causing trouble." Following her instructions, Ding Meng's vision immediately changed. The scenery around him immediately became blurry and gray. The four people in front of him were all in a blue energy state. This was a normal characteristic of a spiritual body. However, Lu Ting was not normal. This was because her head was constantly emitting traces of light green atomized energy. This was not easy to notice. The most surprising thing was that this energy was very stealthy. It floated into the air and then twisted towards her head. However, the part of the energy that was directed towards her changed from green to red. This seemed to be some kind of brainwave interference. Chapter 738. This is the high-level psychic ability of Origin Ability users, telepathy. It's a secret manual of spiritual assistance. She used this ability to discover your whereabouts, Xian Yuan explained. Ding Meng said, "But why didn't I feel anything unusual?" Xian Yuan sneered. "When you were talking to this officer just now, did you feel a little angry?" With a reminder, Ding Meng suddenly understood. "Yes, that's right. It's very strange." Xian Yuan said this telepathy is a very powerful psychic ability. It tracks down the enemy by sensing their emotions. It can also subtly influence the enemy's emotions to achieve an indirect effect. Do you understand now? Ding Meng suddenly understood. The other party was trying to provoke his anger and make him feel angry without him knowing. Anger could sometimes make people explode, but after a long battle, they would lose their rationality. When he felt angry just now, he immediately used the first 8 origins to force Jia Dao back. He had the upper hand, but if he continued to fight like this, when Lu Ting completely enraged him, he would lose his rationality and fight these 4 old monsters. Then he would be doomed. The principle was simple. The other party was constantly testing him and exhausting him. No matter how strong he was, he could be exhausted to death. Xian Yuan said, "That's right. If you want to deal with these experts, the first one you have to defeat is that woman. If she doesn't die, you'll have endless troubles in the future. That's why I'm not talking nonsense. Women are really troublesome." At this moment, in the vision of Fong Lin and the others, Ding Meng's entire body was burning with an invisible flame. His aura soared to a terrifying level, causing everyone to see that the surrounding environment was in the shape of rotating stripes. This was Ding Meng's first 5 diamond origins being activated. Jia Dao was a little disapproving just now. "Aren't you so powerful? You've been hit by me before. Seems like it won't be a problem to take you down." Now this thought had been completely shattered. He was very clear about one thing. If he were to fight this Ding Meng one-on-one, he definitely wouldn't have the slightest chance of winning, because Ding Meng's aura was already at the level of a war god. "Let's go together." Jia Dao turned his head and said. Lu Ting nodded, and the two of them rushed out at the same time. This round of attack was much more magnificent. More than 10 flashing blazing sun battle runes turned into origin energy blades and chopped towards Ding Meng in a disorderly manner. While running, Jia Dao also released several holy walls to form a huge square space that enveloped Ding Ming. At the same time, Lu Ting also displayed a powerful martial technique. Identical human figures emerged from her body and flew towards Ding Ming. One after another, one after another, one move after another. This was the most standard shadow of the soaring dragon. For a moment, the entire mountaintop flashed with a strong light, and a storm suddenly rose. The scene was extremely spectacular. Ding Ming opened his palm, and a cross-shaped light rose from his palm. The light kept spinning. Seeing that the opponent's various techniques were about to reach him, Ding Ming struck out with his palm. The refined holy light essence immediately flew into the air and instantly turned into a huge cross-shaped bright star, like the blazing sun in the night sky. The light spun again. The bright star was like a sharp cross-shaped blade, but it was more like a visible black hole. Boom! The wall of holy splendor instantly collapsed. Ding, 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 ding. The blazing sun battle runes shattered into pieces. Chi! 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 The shadow of the soaring dragon disappeared without a trace. Jia Dao was not discouraged. When he got close, he decisively chopped at Ding Ming's face with his palm. Lu Ting, who was on the side, also sent a flying kick towards Ding Ming's right shoulder. The two of them, one on the left and one on the right, complemented each other. He thought that Ding Ming would dodge, but who knew that Ding Ming actually did not dodge? With a thump sound, his forehead was hit by the palm. Jia Dao was a little dumbfounded. He felt as if his palm had hit a steel plate. Not only did Ding Ming not fall, but he also raised his iron claw-like left hand and grabbed Lu Ting's ankle in a flash. He took advantage of the momentum and lifted her up, smashing her towards Jia Dao, who was next to him. This scene turned out to be Lu Ting's head hitting Jia Dao's shoulder. Both of them had used too much strength and could not stop in time. Jia Dao was knocked to the ground. They had prepared a lot of follow-up moves, but they could not do anything. No one thought that Ding Ming would actually use this method of fight. Before Lu Ting even landed on the ground, Ding Ming's figure floated over like a ghost. He raised his hand again, and the source flame on it had turned purple, like a butterfly floating over. When a butterfly flutters, who can predict its erratic trajectory? When a butterfly flapped its wings, its figure was so beautiful, but this kind of beauty was fatal. Lu Ting instinctively raised her hand to block, and with a crack, her elbow joint made a crisp sound. Ding Ming's hand was only slightly blocked, but the tip of his palm was still pointed at Lu Ting's temple. If she was hit, she would be seriously injured, if not dead. At this critical moment, a fierce hurricane blew from behind Lu Ting, and then a pair of steel boots, burning with purple source flame, fell from the sky. Bam, bam, bam. Four consecutive strange kicks were swept out. Ding Ming had to change his hand gestures 4 times in a row to force the opponent back. He also felt the same powerful force, and he was forced to take a few steps back. When he stood still, Xiefei had already stood in front of Jia Dao and the others to protect them. He said expressionlessly, "You'd better not kill an important member of the military." Ding Ming stared at him. "They wanted to kill me, but you just stood there and watched. You waited until I counterattacked, and then you did this?" Jia Dao was knocked to the ground and couldn't get up. He couldn't help but spit out, "There's no need to talk about morality when dealing with a Federation criminal like you. You deserve to die." What answered him was a flood of white light from Ding Ming's palm. This shockwave was released almost without warning. Even the experienced Xiefei didn't expect Ding Ming's attack to be so fierce and fast. Even he didn't dare to face this flood head-on. He hurriedly activated a multi-prism origin energy shield and leapt into the air. However, Auspicious Island didn't have such godlike reflexes. He instinctively activated his source steel shield, but it was of no use. The knockoff version of the Thousand Eyes Tide was extremely powerful. Before the shield could fully form, it had already turned into nothing. Following that, Auspicious Island was sucked into the tide. Similar to Loanna from before, Auspicious Island's true body could be seen turning into a black shadow, which was slowly disintegrated under the impact of the current. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The small hill couldn't withstand the impact of this kind of energy at all. The entire hill collapsed by 5 or 6 meters, and the rocks on top of the hill danced in the air like a violent storm. A moment later, Ding Meng withdrew his palm, and the flood disappeared. Jia Dao's body was still quite sturdy, and he didn't die. However, he was now no different from a dead man. His officer's uniform was torn to shreds, and there wasn't a single part of his body that was intact. His skin had been cut open by the heat, and his flesh had been burned to a crisp. Many of the wounds were so deep that bones could be seen. He lay on the ground 30 meters away, curled up like a pile of mangled meat. He was only breathing out. Needless to say, this person wasn't dead, but he was already crippled. Lu Ting, on the other hand, was considered lucky. She was not affected by the beam of light, but she was still sent flying. She crashed into a huge rock 40 meters away, and her head was also bleeding. Her face was ferocious, and most importantly, her right arm was broken. Seeing this, Hao Dong was so shocked that he immediately stood up. His eyes were burning with anger. How dare you attack a military officer? Do you want to become the enemy of the entire Holy Grail Federation? Ding Meng's cold expression seemed to be replying to everyone. Let's see who deserves to die the most. This is what you get for messing with me. CF Faley floated in the air, looking down at the scorched earth below. He couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. With such terrifying destructive power, with such profound energy, why didn't our Sheng Hao group make use of such an excellent talent? Why did we have to make an enemy out of him? Femme fatale. CF Faley sighed. She was indeed a femme fatale. Or was it because Yuan Jie cared too much about Ding Meng that he was so angry that he gave the order to kill Ding Meng? Otherwise, things wouldn't have turned out this way. Fong Lin hadn't made a move yet. At this moment, she looked at Ding Meng meaningfully and said, "That's right." Ding Meng's gaze also fell on her. He knew that she was the real expert and the most difficult person to deal with. Ling Xingwen also gave orders through the communication device. "Aunt Fong, you've seen it for yourself. This man is arrogant and despotic. He even dared to attack a military officer. Please get rid of him." Fong Lin didn't answer. She just nodded slightly. Suddenly, Ding Meng felt a bone-piercing chill. The temperature around him was dropping rapidly. He opened his palm and was shocked to find that it wasn't raindrops that fell into his palm, but snowflakes. This wasn't a change in the weather. The temperature had dropped to 0. This was man-made. When he raised his head to look at Fong Lin, her figure had also turned blurry. Ding Meng had this kind of experience. Under extremely cold weather, the visibility of the surrounding scenery was very low. He quickly reacted. Fong Lin was a pure ice element origin ability user. Ding Meng was stunned again. He suddenly saw a layer of light blue waves appear on the ground. He used his telekinesis to investigate and found that these weren't real waves. The ground was actually freezing. The ice was spreading at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ding Meng instinctively retreated, but the ground behind him was also freezing. The ice wasn't spreading from Fong Lin's position. Instead, it was spreading from all directions. The entire mountain was frozen. There was no way he could avoid it, even if he wanted to. Xian Yuan's voice suddenly sounded. Her tone was very serious. "This is the art of freezing hell. I saw it 100 years ago. I didn't expect it to be released by this person. However, her energy seems to be many times stronger than it was 100 years ago." Ding Meng didn't have time to answer her because he felt an even stronger pressure. Right above his head, an even colder and more ferocious energy appeared. It was like an invisible wall of ice, pressing down on him with overwhelming force. This wasn't something the ice on the ground could compare to. Ding Meng could be considered to have fought with many ice element experts before, but she had never seen such a powerful esper before. Just her origin ability index alone had already exceeded 50 billion. No wonder even someone as strong as CF Faley had to call her sister. Sure enough, she was a ferocious woman of the elder sister generation. Ding Meng even had a premonition that if he flew into the sky to avoid the layer of ice on the ground, he would fall right into her trap. The ice essence source energy above his head should have just killed him. It seemed like he could only take her ultimate move head-on. Chapter 739. As soon as Fong Lin's hell of cold was unleashed, not only Ding Ming, who was in the epicenter, but even Eisendel and the others, who were 5 kilometers away, felt a severe chill. "Sister, I'm very cold." Yixi's whole body was trembling. Eisendel took out a thick robe and put on her. Lan Bing noticed that the nearby swamp had frozen, and the leaves on the trees were frozen. The ice was coming from Ding Ming's direction. It was obvious that a great ice god had descended here. Eisendel also looked in Ding Ming's direction and murmured, "Grandpa was right. There's always someone better than you." "Who is this?" Lan Bing also sighed. "I never thought that someone could cultivate ice origin energy to such a high level. I'm impressed." Little did they know that the hillside had completely turned into an iceberg at this moment. The surrounding ground was completely frozen, and the snow particles in the air were condensed. Even the wind was frozen. This was just like a dead world. CF Faley was already 1,000 meters away from Ding Ming. All he could do was shake his head as he stared at the glacier. 100 years ago, Fong Lin had used the art of frigid hell on the battlefield of the Devouring Realm. Back then, the most she could do was freeze an army of monsters below the warrior tier. But now, not only was she able to freeze everything, the purity of the energy was at least 10 times higher. He really couldn't imagine how Ding Ming could survive this. If there really was an ice palace hell in this world, then this was undoubtedly it. Trapped in hell, there was nowhere to run. Was this the end of Ding Ming? When a layer of ice touched Ding Ming's boots in the blink of an eye, Ding Ming immediately felt Fong Lin's power. The rotation speed of the origin in his body rapidly slowed down, including the diamond origin. The flow of origin energy was no longer smooth, and it became very difficult. It was like the first time he constructed the source energy mirror on the dead silent planet. That uncomfortable feeling was suffocating. As a matter of fact, Ding Ming's judgment was correct. As soon as the ice came into contact with his boots, it quickly spread upward, and in a matter of seconds, he was frozen into an ice sculpture. In the distance, Fong Lin also flew up and hovered in midair. She spread out her hands and constantly made different gestures. The invisible ice energy in the sky was finally visible to the naked eye. It was like a transparent water stream had formed a sphere, and this sphere had completely trapped Ding Ming. On the radar screen of Ling Xingwen and the others, there were already several ice sculptures inside the sphere. This was actually a visual difference caused by the refraction of multiple layers of ice, but it was still shocking enough because this was the peak of the ice element war god realm. Ling Xingwen sneered. "You want to go against me? I'll make sure you don't even have a corpse left." She was happy too early, and she didn't notice that Fong Lin's expression was particularly grim. Logically speaking, from the moment the Hell Force field appeared, Ding Ming should have been unable to move. In fact, Ding Ming hadn't moved at all. However, with the ice essence's confinement, Ding Ming should have stopped breathing and died on the spot. However, Ding Ming definitely wasn't dead because his aura was still there. Moreover, this aura was sometimes weakening and sometimes strengthening. It was obvious that Ding Ming was still stubbornly resisting within the sphere of ice. "You're the first one to have been able to struggle against me for so long." Fong Lin was also somewhat impressed by Ding Ming. She spread her palms apart, as if she was holding an invisible sphere of ice. Then, she slowly closed her palms, and the surface of the invisible sphere of ice began to emit a strong rainbow-colored light. Furthermore, it could be seen that the sphere of ice was slowly shrinking. Her intention was clear. She wanted to squeeze Ding Ming to death. This ice-type origin ability user has at least 400 years of painstaking training. Xian Yuan sighed. "He's definitely the cream of the crop. If you don't show me your true abilities, I'm afraid you'll be frozen here forever." Ding Ming was indeed feeling uncomfortable from being frozen by this sphere of ice. This was because there were several layers of ice on the outside, and they were different from ordinary ice essence. They seemed to be solid but not solid, liquid but not liquid. Even catoptrid deflection couldn't cut through them. Moreover, they were also rotating and flowing irregularly. One couldn't find any weaknesses or flaws in their changes at all. The worst thing was that Ding Ming found that his own heat couldn't affect it at all. His telekinesis vision could see very clearly that the sphere of ice was constantly shrinking. His entire body was experiencing intense pain. It was a pain that came from his very bones. Cold, numbness, stabbing pain, and intense pain mixed together. It felt as if his bones were about to break. Ding Ming gritted his teeth. The 5 diamond origin points in his body began to operate at their maximum capacity. The remaining origin points lit up one after another, and finally, the divine light essence within the smelting space was extracted. At this moment, within the layer of ice, Ding Ming's body flickered with rainbow flames. At the same time, Fong Lin's expression also changed. This was because her palms were suddenly repelled by an even stronger force. Not only did they not close, but they were also being stretched. Far away in the night sky, Xiafei couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Heavens, this kid's aura is still increasing, and it's increasing exponentially. Just what kind of freak is he? In the command center of the Golden Eagle mothership wasn't just Haodong and Ling Xingwen. Almost all of the staff members put down what they were doing and raised their heads to look at the large screen in the center of the room. The screen was no longer showing normal images. Instead, it was displaying a chaotic rainbow. "What's the situation?" Haodong asked in a low voice. A staff member explained, "Sir, the transmission shows that there's nothing wrong with the radar." Haodong frowned. What he didn't know was that at this moment, on top of the ice mountain, a transparent ball of ice was spewing out a large amount of fog in all directions. That was why there was such a visual effect. The rainbow fog was the water vapor. Ding Ming's origin energy, which was hundreds of thousands of degrees hot, was forcibly melting Fong Lin's art of freezing hell bit by bit. Xiafei also looked at this shocking scene. The layer of ice on the ground began to smoke and gradually turned into water. It was also fading away at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was now going back the same way it had come. The snow particles in the night sky turned into a fine drizzle, drifting away with the cold wind. The temperature in the air rose back up, and Rocky Mountain's original appearance was revealed. Crack! The layer of ice binding Ding Ming's body shattered, and his body began to emit steam. Impossible! Fong Lin's expression was one of shock. It wasn't that she didn't believe that someone could break her ice formation, but she didn't believe that a 30-year-old brat could have such powerful energy. "We can't let him live. He must die." Ling Xingwen roared crazily when he saw that the image was restored. "Kill him! Kill him! Kill him for me!" Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Fong Lin's right hand bent into a claw, and after waving in the air a few times, she decisively slammed it down. 5 strands of white light, as thin as ropes, shot out from her fingertips, accurately hitting Ding Ming's chest like a railgun. The power of this attack was so strong that even the night sky was lit up, turning it into day. Ding Ming found that a large amount of ice source energy had been injected into his body, and countless amounts of holy light energy were counteracting this attack. It felt as if his blood was constantly leaking out of his body, and when it was drained dry, it would be the day of his death. "You?" Ding Ming also revealed a rare look of shock. This woman's strength had far exceeded his expectations. When he first met Gu Yu in outer space, he felt that Gu Yu was already very strong. Later, when he met the demons Sheng Tianfeng, he felt that Gu Yu wasn't worth mentioning. When he met Eisendale, he judged that Sheng Tianfeng was no match for Eisendale. When Ling Xingqi and Yuan Shu appeared, Eisendale also became ordinary. But this Fong Lin in front of him, even if everyone's combat power was increased by 5 times, they probably still wouldn't be her match. The world of origin ability users was indeed endless. If this continues, we'll be exhausted to death by her. Xian Yuan was also a little anxious. Even if you're a holy light warrior, you're still too young. How can your foundation be compared to someone who has lived for hundreds of years? At least she's eaten a lot of heaven and earth treasures. These words reminded Ding Meng that his advantage was the holy light energy, which was 10,000 times purer than origin energy. If this continued, he definitely wouldn't be able to hold on for long. He had to find a way to stop her. Under the gaze of tens of thousands of people in the patrol fleet, Ding Meng flashed his holy light wings. Then, he forcibly withstood Fong Lin's attacks and gradually flew off the ground. He rose into the air at a relatively slow speed. What is this kid trying to do? CF Faley was very puzzled. Of course, he didn't understand. Although Ding Meng's combat experience wasn't as rich as theirs, his improvisational strategies and adaptations were faster than anyone else's. As soon as he rose into the air, Fong Lin's expression turned cold. She gently waved her left hand and threw it downwards. An icy blue dot of light floated down towards Ding Meng. The ordinary-looking dot of light flew halfway and suddenly transformed into a crystal blue sword of ice. This sword was at least 20 meters long and glittered with a cold light and murderous aura. However, when the ice sword slashed down, not only did it not knock Ding Meng back to the ground, it instead slammed into the diamond shield that had suddenly appeared around Ding Meng. The ice sword instantly shattered, but the shield also transformed into a gust of icy wind and disappeared without a trace. CF Faley's eyes were filled with admiration. He wasn't admiring Fong Lin, but Ding Meng. He admired this kid from the bottom of his heart. What meticulous and agile mind he had. Why did Ding Meng have to endure such a huge consumption of energy to forcefully ascend? His goal was to test Fong Lin's mentality. He had only ascended a few meters when Fong Lin summoned a ball of dark ice energy to attack him. Why was this? It was obvious that she was afraid of Ding Meng getting close to her. This was a common problem for almost all Ice-type origin ability users. Their martial arts were incomparably beautiful and powerful, but their defensive abilities were very weak. An Ice-type origin ability user was similar to a mage. They could use their ice energy to perfection, but they would be quite wary of approaching assassins and warriors. Perhaps for an intermediate war god like Fong Lin, she also had defensive methods to deal with close combat. But one must know that her current opponent was Ding Meng. He was no ordinary warlord or warlord. If she really allowed him to get close to her, he could break a row of her ribs with a single slap. This was also the reason why CF Faley truly admired Ding Meng. It was true that having heaven-defying strength was strong, but every origin ability user had to remember that no matter how strong you were, there would always be someone stronger than you. The higher you stood, the more painful it would be to fall. Compared to exaggerated personal strength, having a clear mind and a flexible mind in battle was more important. This was because this was the true capital that allowed one to look down on heroes. It was a talent that others would never be able to learn. Chapter 740. Under the white light of the night, the ice essence shone brightly. 5 brilliant pillars of light illuminated the land of Thousand Sails Star. Under such terrifying pressure, Ding Meng could only flap his wings and slowly ascend. Fong Lin's expression also changed. She reached out with her left hand, and 5 more pillars of light shot out from her fingertips. The 5 beams of ice elemental light seemed to be attacks of divine light energy. They directly covered Ding Meng's chest. Compared to before, Ding Meng was even more uncomfortable now. His internal organs felt like they were being overturned. His opponent's source energy was so profound that even he could feel his own source energy leaking out. His origin spun faster and faster as the smelting space continuously injected energy into it. Under the suppression of the 10 pillars of light, Ding Meng's ascension was indeed suppressed. He was frozen in the air, unable to move. In fact, both of them were in great pain. If Fong Lin dared to let go, she believed that Ding Meng would rush up like a bolt of lightning. However, Ding Meng couldn't move either. The pillars of light had an extremely strong adhesive force. He could only move in a straight line, and it was impossible to dodge to the left or the right. Ah! Ding Ming raised his head and let out an angry roar. With a boom, the entire mountain was set ablaze. Countless thermodynamic wind and water ripples spread out in all directions. This time, not only were tens of thousands of pairs of eyes filled with disbelief, even Fong Lin's face was filled with shock. That's right, Ding Ming's aura was still rising. This person was like a perpetual motion machine, and his body contained an endless amount of energy. The wings of light flapped again, and Ding Ming's figure began to soar into the sky. His speed was slow, but the distance between them was shrinking bit by bit. 90 meters, 85 meters, 80 meters, 75 meters, 70 meters. When Ding Ming reached 50 meters in the air, Fong Lin finally couldn't hold it in any longer. She yelled at the sky, "Brother Fei Li, there's no need to talk about justice when dealing with criminals of the Federation. If you connive with criminals, you'll be harmed in the end." How can an experienced man like Xie Fei Li not understand the underlying meaning behind her words? To put it bluntly, they were hoping that he would take advantage of this opportunity to make a move. Now that both sides were in a deadlock, it was the best time to take his life. As the saying goes, take his life while he's down. If you don't do anything, do you think Ding Ming will let you go when I'm done for? Xie Fei Li had been watching the battle the whole time. He actually had his own plans. In the beginning, he was indeed following orders. His mentality was the same as Fong Lin's. No matter how strong Ding Ming was, how strong could a 30-year-old kid be? Brother, age is a shortcoming. Therefore, he felt that taking down Ding Ming wouldn't be a problem. However, after coming here, Ding Ming had refreshed his worldview time and time again. It turned out that a warlord could increase his limit time and time again. At this time, he had already given up on dealing with Ding Ming. One reason was that he admired Ding Ming, but the more important reason was that he thought further. A young genius like Ding Ming was blessed with great fortune. If he somehow managed to survive this, he would definitely become a powerhouse of his generation in the Federal Empire. I can't wait to befriend someone like him. And you still expect me to deal with him? If I don't make a move, I'll be showing my goodwill and forming a good relationship with him. In the future, when I mention this matter, he might even be grateful to me. That would be endless wealth. As for the Shenghao Corporation, you can go to the side. No matter how strong you are, you can't beat a powerhouse of the interstellar. Therefore, after Fong Lin's shout, Xie Fei Li still stayed in the air and didn't do anything. Seeing that Xie Fei Li didn't do anything, Fong Lin became anxious. She slowly put her palms together and pushed her origin energy to the limit before slamming them down. This time, he's dead for sure. Ling Xingwen revealed a proud expression. Hao Dong frowned and said, "The legendary Ice God's Nirvana art?" It was indeed the Ice God's Nirvana art, a legendary 9-star cultivation technique of the Holy Grail Federation. They had only heard of its name and had never seen its power, but now, everyone had seen it for themselves. The 10 pillars of light produced a glowing human face. The face was vivid and lifelike, and it quickly fell down like the face of a goddess. In that instant, it was as if an ancient miracle had appeared. The flames that had been ignited by Ding Ming's aura were immediately extinguished, and Thousand Sails Planet returned to its deathly stillness. Not only did the strong light illuminate the horizon, it was so dazzling that even a powerhouse like Xie Fei Li couldn't open his eyes. The flood of ice created by the Ice God's Nirvana art instantly drowned Ding Ming, like a lonely leaf being swept into the depths of the ocean. Ah! Fong Lin also let out an angry roar. The mirror image of the goddess disappeared, and in its place was a cylindrical flood of ice essence. The flood of ice essence was like a waterfall crashing into the ground below. 30 seconds later, the iceberg regained its tranquility. Amidst the ice shards and rocks, Ding Ming was still in a flying posture, but he had completely turned into an ice cube. His aura had also disappeared. It seemed that he had fallen into a state of death. Ha ha ha! Ling Xingwen laughed without restraint. Now, do you know the power of the Starbao Corporation? You want to fight me? You're just an ant. You overestimated yourself. Hao Dong shrugged. Fortunately, Uncle Ling sent you here. Otherwise, we would have been in trouble as well. In the air, CF Faley sighed slightly. He felt that it was a pity that such a powerful war god had been destroyed by the Starbao Corporation. He didn't know if this was Sheng Hao's good fortune or bad fortune. At this moment, Fong Lin had already drifted back to the ground. CF Faley had no choice but to descend as well. CF Faley sighed as he looked at the human-shaped ice sculpture that had been frozen for 10,000 years. He really is dead. There's no sign of life. Fong Lin appeared to be very weak. She was panting heavily. Why didn't you make a move just now? Because I knew that with your strength, you could have easily dealt with him. CF Faley lied without batting an eyelid. Fong Lin was too lazy to pursue the matter. After all, Ding Meng was already dead. How could CF Faley have the face to take away Ding Meng's bag? No matter what, this was something that couldn't be justified. CF Faley still wanted to maintain his face. After all, the person who had taken care of everything was Fong Lin. This bag of heaven and earth treasures would definitely belong to the Starbao Corporation. I'm quite impressed by this kid. Fong Lin walked toward the ice sculpture. If he can live past 100 years, I dare say that at least within the Federation, he'll be invincible. CF Faley agreed with this point. He had seen Ding Meng's information. Ding Meng had awakened his origin ability at the age of 21. In just 10 years, he had advanced from a beginner origin ability user to a legendary war god. This wasn't the speed of a rocket. This was the speed of light, a cheat. What a pity, CF Faley casually replied. What's there to pity? There are countless people who don't know what's good for them. He's not the first, nor will he be the last. Are there any lack of examples like him in the Federation? Fong Lin opened her palm and gently pulled back. The ice on Ding Meng's body turned into mist and returned to her palm. The wet corpse immediately fell to the ground. CF Faley stared at the corpse. But he's still a member of our Sheng Hao Corporation. Fong Lin walked forward and bent down to examine Ding Meng's corpse. Don't feel sorry for him. Since he wants to make a living under a large corporation like Sheng Hao Corporation, he has to follow the rules. Those who don't follow the rules usually end up like this. CF Faley nodded. That's the theory, but finding another talent like him isn't difficult. It's just a matter of luck. Fong Lin raised her head. Forget it. Let's not dwell on these meaningless questions. Brother Faley, it wasn't easy for you to come all the way here. I'll inform Second Miss, and the Starbao Corporation will compensate you. As for what the compensation would be, CF Faley didn't know. But no matter how good the compensation would be, could it be better than Ding Meng's bag? That's the only way. CF Faley resentfully replied. At this moment, Fong Lin's hand was already reaching for Ding Meng's waist. Just as her hand came into contact with Ding Meng's bag, a cold light shot up from the ground like a venomous snake. CF Faley and Fong Lin both stopped circulating their origin energy. They didn't have time to react. With a flash of blue light, Fong Lin collapsed to the ground. This change was simply unexpected. Ling Xingwen, who was on the mothership, felt as if she had been struck by lightning. What she saw was a hand reaching out from the ground, just like a dead person in a coffin, suddenly reaching out a ghostly hand. The ghostly hand was holding a gleaming dagger, and the dagger was accurately sent into Fong Lin's heart. This moment was simply too fast. It was so fast that no one could see it clearly. It was so fast that it was suffocating. While they were still in a daze, the corpse on the ground miraculously faded away like a shadow. With a loud crash, a figure emerged from the ground. Who else could this unkempt person be other than Ding Meng? CF Faley's eyes widened. Ding Meng didn't say anything. Instead, he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of bright white blood. Only then did he let out a laugh. Men die for wealth, and birds die for food. This is the law of this world. Greed always comes with a price. As he spoke, the satchel on the ground automatically flew back to his waist, and the dagger on Fong Lin's chest was also recalled and embedded into his belt. You? CF Faley's expression was one of shock. He retreated in fear. How did you do it? Of course, Ding Meng couldn't tell him that he won this time by gambling like crazy. When Fong Lin used the Ice God's Nirvana manual, he gave up on the idea of using all his origins to their limits. He wasn't weaker than this woman, but that would consume too much energy. Thus, he quickly used the solitary lotus step to summon a doppelganger. There's only one doppelganger, and it was at the epicenter of the attack. His real body sank vertically into the ground and held his breath as he curled up in the ground. The price of taking the initiative to retreat was that he had to take Fong Lin's ultimate attack head-on. Injuries were inevitable. This created a false impression for everyone. Ding Meng was killed. In fact, Ding Meng's thought process was very clear. Fong Lin was strong because she had the advantage of distance. Once she lost this advantage, his opportunity would come. He knew that after he faked his death, someone would come to fight for his bag. No matter who reached for it first, that person would be unlucky, because the moment you reach for it would be the moment when you let your guard down. Moreover, everyone was so exhausted that he didn't believe that you would have the energy to activate your shield to take the bag. As such, this attack didn't have any source energy attached to it. It was purely a basic combat technique. Of course, this was also a valuable technique that he had honed through countless life and death situations. At this moment, Fong Lin was lying on the ground. Blue blood flowed out of the corner of her mouth. Her chest was also bleeding profusely. Her breathing was extremely weak. Even if she wasn't dead, it would take at least 10 or 20 years for her to recover her previous combat strength. Fei was still retreating. Even though Ding Meng was heavily injured, he still didn't dare to attack Ding Meng. He really didn't dare because he wasn't confident. Chapter 741. As soon as Su Mingling showed her weapon, the rudder's arm also changed. After a burst of black smoke, two long and thin brown scimitars appeared in his hand. The scimitars were like enlarged versions of Hero's dagger, but they were not on the rudder's arm. Instead, they were worn on the rudder's arm. It was as if the arm was the scimitar, and the scimitar was the arm. Also, the blade was constantly emitting a faint black smoke. It was obvious that it had been tempered with poison. As soon as both sides summoned their weapons, they started fighting without saying a word. In Ding Meng's vision, a black light and a red light were entangled together. Ding, 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 sounds of weapons colliding rang out incessantly. Under the night sky, the shadows of swords and sabers danced like snowflakes. Su Mingling dared to challenge Ding Meng for a reason. She was a typical assassin of the lightspeed class. Her speed was top-notch, and the unique structure of Tai Chi allowed her to perform many exquisite moves. For example, the rudder was waving his scimitars left and right. Not only could Su Mingling use the fan-shaped blades to parry, she could also use the short sword to stab forward in an instant. She could truly defend and attack at the same time. Ding Meng thought to himself, so she's confident because of this pair of weapons. Xian Yuan said in a low voice, "It's useless. You couldn't beat him 100 years ago, and you still can't beat him 100 years later." Sure enough, after more than 20 rounds of clanging and clanging, Fei also joined the battle. He did not have a weapon, so he pushed out more than a dozen swords with scorching battle engravings from his palms. It was as if more than a dozen weapons surrounded the rudder and bombarded him indiscriminately. The rudder was also forced to retreat. Ding Meng did not join in because Lan Bing and the others had returned to the hill. The psychic model turned from blurry to clear again. Ding Meng sent a telepathic message. "Don't come near. Wait at the foot of the hill." Isendale also sent a telepathic message. "There's a large amount of poisonous energy from the world of Devourer surging in this direction. They will arrive in at most 10 minutes. Ding Meng nodded. He also knew that if an expert like the city leader came to find them first, then a large number of monsters from the devouring world would sweep over this place. Xian Yuan said, "Later, as long as you force the city rudder to reveal its immortal aperture, we can use it to escape. However, with your strength, it might take some time to tame it. Now, I'm just afraid of the human fleet in the sky." Immortal Element's worry was not without reason. The various control areas on the mothership no longer watched the battle and began to get busy again. The reconnaissance radar was being upgraded. The staff reported, "Sir, we can't transmit real-time images." We can only accurately determine the coordinates. Haodong pondered and said, "Inform the vanguard to bring back Officer Lu Ting and the other injured people." The staff hesitated, but the people of Shenghao Group are still on the ground. According to the general rules of the Federation, we are obliged to recall them. This was the humanitarian law of the Holy Grail Federation. Whenever they encountered an alien enemy, they had to prioritize rescuing humans. It stood to reason that the people of Shenghao Group should also be recalled. However, at this time, Ling Xingwen gnashed her teeth and said, "Ignore them. Ding Meng has connections with outer space forces. He might even be connected to the devouring world. Wanted criminals are not covered by the humanitarian law." The staff did not dare to say anything. The second daughter of Xing Hong Group had always been strong and domineering. Few people dared to refute her. However, this statement was obviously unreasonable. How could human origin ability users collude with the devouring world forces? Unfortunately, Haodong did not express his opinion. Let's bring Officer Liu and Senior Lin back first. 3 minutes later, a positioning light spot appeared in the open space on the south side of the mountain peak. The light spot quickly expanded into a teleportation array. Lu Ting supported Fong Lin and walked toward the teleportation array with difficulty, while Jia Dao crawled on the ground with difficulty. Huh? Ding Meng glanced behind and saw that the three of them wanted to escape. Xian Yuan seemed to know what he wanted to do. Ignore them. These two people of Shenghao Group are almost done. Ding Meng turned his head and carefully observed the battle in the center of the open space. Xie Feili and Su Mingling had been fighting with the city rudder. Neither side used any special martial arts skills. It felt like they were wearing each other down. Xian Yuan explained, "They're wearing each other down. They must have fought with people from the Sacred Clan before. They know that using powerful martial arts skills will not only have no effect on the enemy, but will also backfire on them." Ding Meng nodded. The energy fluctuations in the air became more and more distorted. It was shockingly similar to the arm blades that the city rudder wielded. It felt like the air was also cooperating with the city rudder's every swing. At this time, Xie Feili and Su Mingling's movements had slowed down. It felt like they were running out of energy. Ding Meng naturally saw the trick. The two of them were not weak, but they were in the middle of the poison field created by the city rudder. Most of their origin energy was used to resist the poison. If they were fighting in the desert, Ding Meng had no doubt that with Xie Feili and Su Mingling working together, the city rudder would fall in at most 5 minutes. This was the advantage of the devouring world. If they fought in their own territory, origin energy users would not be able to feel it. However, when origin energy users fought against them, their disadvantage was obvious. This was equivalent to having their combat strength reduced by 2/3. At this rate, even someone as strong as a war god would be like a beginner battle saint fighting against a sect master. The chances of winning were really low. Suddenly, there was a soft dang sound. Su Mingling floated back more than 10 meters. When she landed, her footsteps were somewhat unstable. The origin energy in her body was spinning chaotically like a whirlpool. She felt a lump of air stuck in her throat, and it was very uncomfortable. She couldn't help but open her mouth and spit out something. She thought that she would spit out blood, but it turned out to be a black mist. It was obvious that she had unwittingly been poisoned. Mingling. Xie Feili was shocked. While he was distracted, the city rudder's 2 blades slashed at him. Ding, 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 ding. More than 10 origin energy blades in the air were immediately shattered. The powerful energy wind arrived in the blink of an eye. Xie Feili quickly pulled his palms together, and a large ball of fiery red energy appeared in front of him. The Holy Flame formation formed a disc to block the energy wind. With a loud boom, the Holy Flame formation was unable to withstand the pressure of the energy wind and was immediately shattered. Xie Feili retreated more than 10 meters and floated to Su Mingling's side, where he stood motionless. His expression seemed to be quite calm, but Ding Meng could see through his telekinesis vision that Xie Feili's body was also filled with a large amount of black mist. He was just an arrow at the end of its flight. Ding Meng was somewhat curious. What kind of poison is this? It's so powerful, even a battle saint can't withstand it. Xian Yuan sighed. I haven't come out in 100 years. I don't know what kind of poison it is. Seeing his two powerful opponents being forced back, the city rudder raised his arms and laughed loudly. I already said that you're a bunch of losers. You're not worth mentioning. Hee hee, do you still have the ability to stop me? But at this moment, the curved shadow teleportation formation had already disappeared. The city rudder sneered. Since you want to cover your comrade's retreat, I'll start with the two of you. Speaking of which, it was quite ironic. Fong Lin and the other two were able to safely enter the teleportation formation because of Xie Feili and Xian Yuan. Now that Xie Feili and Xian Yuan were injured, the military's positioning light was no longer showing up. Su Mingling tried the communicator in her ear, but there was no signal. She couldn't help but show an ugly expression. Xie Feili obviously also noticed the problem. The patrol fleet had turned off the communicator. If they wanted to escape, they could only retreat towards the town. Do you think you can still escape? The city rudder grinned as he raised his saber and rushed forward like a ghost. Suddenly, there was a blur in front of his eyes, and a figure appeared like a ghost. Its speed was even faster than his, and it directly blocked his path. The city rudder sized up Ding Meng. Kid, it's not your turn yet. Why are you in such a hurry? Before he came, he had carefully sensed that this young kid's aura was the weakest in the group, so he didn't take him seriously. But now, it seemed that this kid's aura hadn't increased by much. Ding Meng couldn't be bothered with him. He turned to the two people behind him and said, You two should go. While there's still a chance, you won't be able to escape later. Xie Feili and Su Mingling were both stunned. They didn't understand what this meant. They were here to kill Ding Meng, but Ding Meng was now helping them block a powerful enemy. Ding Meng sighed, as if he was talking to himself. Lan Bing is right. When Xinhong Group was targeting me, Sheng Hao Group extended an olive branch. You two should go. From now on, Sheng Hao Group and I are even. Although it was Lan Bing who had recruited him, the Prince's Frog was still a product of the Sheng Hao Group. It was worth hundreds of billions of dollars. No matter what, Sheng Hao Group had helped him. If he let you win Shu, you Anjie, Xie Feili, and Su Mingling go, and the Sheng Hao Group came to find trouble with him in the future, then they would have to fight head-on seriously. Xie Feili seemed to understand Ding Meng's thoughts. He took the initiative to cup his hands and said, Little friend Ding Meng, I will always remember this friendship. Be careful. Mingling, let's go. After the two disappeared on the mountain path, Ding Meng turned to look at the city rudder. You seem to be very confident. The city rudder wasn't in a hurry, because the army was about to arrive. This place would soon be flooded by the tide of poisonous swamps. Kid, they seem to be here to deal with you, right? But you're taking the initiative to die for them? You're quite interesting. Ding Meng couldn't help but laugh. You really think I'm here to die? The city rudder looked at him contemptuously. Other than wanting to die, I really can't think of any other reason. Since that's the case, I'll fulfill your wish. Bear with it for a while. It'll be over soon. It won't hurt. The two of them were about 20 meters apart. Ding Meng just stood there leisurely, as if he had no intention of making a move. Even his aura was only at the level of a war reverend. Of course, the city rudder wasn't stupid enough to think that Ding Meng was just a war reverend. He stared at Ding Meng for a while, then suddenly charged forward. This time, his speed was even faster than when he and Xie Feili had fought. It was like a black fog had turned into a sharp arrow and pierced towards Ding Meng. He was confident that even if Ding Meng was a high-level battle saint, he wouldn't be able to dodge it. Chapter 742. Bastard. Ling Xingwen was furious at this moment and stood up from her seat. Fong Lin was the top core power of the Xinhong Group, yet she was tricked by Ding Meng in this way. Haodong, we can't let the murderer go unpunished. Ling Xingwen turned her head and shouted. Haodong's expression was also quite serious. Ding Meng had seriously injured Lu Ting and Jia Dao by himself. Even a top master like Fong Lin had been beaten to the brink of death. With the strength of the patrol fleet's origin ability users, there was no one here who could compete with Ding Meng. Ling Xingwen reminded him with another meaning. If they used the starship's weapons to deal with Ding Ming, no matter how fierce Ding Ming was, could he withstand the starship's orbital bombardment? However, using the starship's large weapons was not a simple matter. First of all, they needed the authorization of the military's higher-ups. Secondly, the sophisticated weapons were used to deal with the enemy, which was the monsters of the Steel Main Empire. Without special circumstances, the patrol fleet could not open fire on a human origin ability user. Here was the trouble. Ding Ming did not kill anyone, only seriously injuring a few masters. Ding Ming was also quite smart. Hao Dong said calmly, "Sister One, don't worry. Shenghao's seniors are still here." So what if Xie Feili was here? At this moment, he could only keep retreating. He did not have the courage to fight at all. Sometimes, the older you were, the more timid you were. However, at this moment, something strange happened again. As soon as Ding Ming put away his satchel, there was a sharp sound in the sky, and a bright red streamer swept over like a rainbow. The streamer was so fast that Ding Ming could not dodge it in time. His chest seemed to have been scratched by something sharp, and there was a red claw mark on his chest. He turned around again. The red streamer rotated and turned into a human figure. It was Su Mingling who had returned. Su Mingling obviously saw the situation on the ground, but she was not afraid at all. She said sternly, "Ding Ming, hand over the things in your hands, and our Shenghao group will not hold you accountable." Ding Ming's face suddenly darkened. "You're so fearless because of these tricks?" Through his telekinesis vision, he could see that a group of Shenghao's experts had formed a circle in a forest 2 kilometers down the mountain, surrounding Lan Bing and the other 3 in the middle. Isendale was now seriously injured, and Lan Bing was only a warlord. She was no match for this group of people, let alone Guzi Easy. However, this group of people hadn't made a move yet. Clearly, they had received instructions from Su Mingling. Xie Feili was shocked. "Don't do anything stupid," Su Mingling said coldly. "Ding Ming, it's fine if you have an affair with Lan Bing. We won't give young Master GF face, but we have to give Mr. Yu face. I'll count to 3 and throw the thing over. Otherwise, at least 2 people below will die." Ding Ming was expressionless. "Look at these people. Are they all your disciples?" Su Mingling said 3. Ding Ming suddenly smiled. "There's something you haven't figured out yet." Su Mingling said sternly. 2. Ding Ming said, "The thing I'm least afraid of is all kinds of threats." Su Mingling's face darkened. 1. Ding Ming suddenly waved his hand casually. Su Mingling said sternly, "Do it." According to their previous arrangement, they would first kill the 2 indigenous people, and then strip Lan Bing naked. As for Isendale, they didn't dare to act recklessly. However, when she shouted to do it, it was quiet below. There was no movement at all. When she probed further with her perception, her expression was immediately shocked. In the open space of the forest, a group of Shenghao's experts had fallen in disorder. More than 30 people were lying unconscious on the ground. Su Mingling couldn't figure out what was going on. This was definitely not something the 4 people below could do. It was actually very simple. The moment Ding Ming waved his hand, many invisible telekinesis strings were released and instantly froze the consciousness of these people. He wasn't afraid of a bunch of high-level warlords. With his telekinesis realm, it wasn't difficult for him to freeze people at this level. Of course, if the distance was a little further, Ding Ming wouldn't be able to do anything. "What else do you have? Just use it." Ding Ming looked at her coldly. At this moment, Xie Feili was secretly complaining. He could already see that although Ding Ming was injured, he hadn't fully displayed his true strength. When Ding Ming raised his hand, he seemed to have revealed another kind of energy that was even more refined. However, he also felt very strange. According to the information he received, Ding Ming was a ruthless person. Why didn't he kill Fong Lin and Lu Ting and kill them directly? Could it be that he was still afraid of Xing Hong? He soon found out the real reason. Just as the 2 sides were facing each other, the ground suddenly shook slightly. The ground seemed to have turned into a water surface. Waves of ripples spread out, and the ground actually changed color. The slate that had been turned blue and white by Ding Ming and Fonglin's source energy, was now exuding a strange green color. CF Fei shouted, "Mingling, be careful!" Su Mingling activated a fiery red spherical shield with a clang. At the same time, she accelerated the circulation of her source energy to resist the poison. Ding Meng stood in place and didn't move. He just coldly looked at the changes around him. Thick mucus seeped out of the slate, turning the place into a swamp in the blink of an eye. The air around them was distorted, and large patches of poisonous fog of various colors enveloped them. On the Golden Eagle mothership, the central screen in the command center suddenly had particle interference. The image became blurry, and there was a prompt that indicated that the signal had been cut off. A staff member immediately reported, "Sir, the quantum detection system has produced a large amount of interference. We can no longer accurately capture the signal. Our initial assessment is that the devouring realm's poisonous miasma is being generated." His assessment was not wrong. The entire hillside was now shrouded in poisonous fog. CF Fei finally understood what Ding Meng was worried about. Everyone was fighting here, so how could the devouring realm not sense it? There must be someone from the devouring realm who had snuck into this place, and their background was probably not small. This was a big problem. CF Fei looked at Ding Meng, who was standing in the middle of the room without moving or activating his shield. CF Fei was even more shocked. Could it be that this kid was immune to the poison? The poisonous fog in the air was now visible to the naked eye in the form of black ribbons. This situation was like diving to the bottom of a lake. Visibility was already very low, and the surroundings were filled with seaweed and impurities. This place was completely under the control of the devouring realm's poisonous miasma. Suddenly, a thick, low, and strange voice laughed sinisterly. "Hee. Ignorant human origin ability users, you actually dare to recklessly fight in our territory. Do you think we don't exist?" Ding Meng took a deep breath and said sternly, "Stop pretending to be mysterious. Get the hell out here." When he spoke, the air he exhaled was especially large, and it contained microscopic particles of divine light energy. One of them was the K-virus. As soon as he exhaled, the black impurities in the air scattered like a school of fish that had been startled. They gathered together and formed a black figure on the pile of rubble. The person in front of him was like an ancient warrior. His entire body was equipped with solid and thick black bone armor. He was tall and had a mighty appearance. However, his face was actually a pig's face with a fat head and big ears. His mouth was like a mosquito's stinging mouthpart, which was abnormally sharp. His entire face was repulsive and was dripping with pus. It was simply nauseating. As soon as they saw this person, CF Fei and Su Mingling immediately acted as if they were facing a great enemy. The two of them even got into their stances, ready to fight at any moment. "The heavens are helping me." Xian Yuan was overjoyed. Ding Meng said, "You know him?" Xian Yuan smiled. "He's an old subordinate of mine in the sanctuary. He's called Cheng Luoyang. He's been the sect master of my sect for 100 years. He's very proficient in using poison treasures." Ding Meng said, "He might not have come here to help you." Xian Yuan nodded. "I understand. You won't be able to sense me in your body unless I show myself." Ding Meng said, "Can this person be used?" Xian Yuan said, "Don't worry. Let the two old guys from the Sheng Hao Corporation suffer a bit first. We'll wait and see." Sure enough, Su Mingling said coldly, "Cheng Luoyang, you're worse than a pig or a dog. I can't believe you're still alive." Cheng Luoyang's eyes were not on her at all, but on Fong Lin and the others who were lying on the ground with serious injuries in the distance. "This is great. I didn't expect this trip to be so rewarding. I can eat to my heart's content." CF Fei and Su Mingling's faces suddenly turned cold. They also realized that this monster wanted to devour everyone and complete its evolution. At this time, Cheng Luoyang's legs disappeared. They turned into two black clouds of mist, like the air currents of a flying unit. In a flash, they were dozens of meters away. Normally, origin ability users' flash step martial arts had the effect of flashing and they could travel a long distance in a flash. However, the devouring realm monster was completely different. Chung Luoyang had clearly flashed a short distance away, but his body flickered a few times as if he was performing a magic trick. He actually flashed quite a bit of distance away. Moreover, his movements were very strange, and it was very difficult to determine his direction. However, Su Mingling was able to stop him. After turning into a stream of light, she stood in front of him. "You rotten thing, you dare to be rude to us?" Chung Luoyang looked at her disdainfully. "Surnamed Su, you were defeated by me 100 years ago. You dare stop me?" Su Mingling didn't waste time with him. Her red robe was extremely bright, and her body suddenly turned into many red shadows. At a glance, it was obvious that this was a martial arts technique. However, there were many of her afterimages, and they were densely packed together, forming a large blurry wall that looked like a fiery red veil. However, it was within this veil that a few extremely sharp white lights suddenly flashed. Chung Luoyang's black body floated back more than 10 meters. His face was filled with shock. You little reptile, you actually have such skills?" Ding Ming looked carefully. Su Mingling's body had returned to normal, but she was holding two very strange weapons in her hands. At first glance, they looked like two shining short swords, but there were metal spikes installed at the bottom of the hilts. On the outside of the hilts, there was a circle of sharp fan-shaped blades. The design was extremely strange. This was a classic of cold weapons, Taiji dual blades. It was also one of the favorite weapons of light-speed assassins. Chapter 743. Ding Ming didn't dodge. He had some reservations about dealing with origin ability users, but he was more confident than anyone in dealing with devouring world creatures. The reason was simple. The cave virus modified by Serum Shan was the nemesis of all poisons. Seeing the city rudder's black mist arm blade approaching him, Ding Ming didn't panic. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood that flickered with white light. This was the cave virus blood mixed with the divine light's energy. The city's rudder was simply too fast, and it almost crashed into Ding Ming. The blood quickly spread out and formed a blood mist, which enveloped the city in an instant. The city rudder felt as if he had been struck by lightning. His facial muscles contracted at a speed visible to the naked eye, and his entire body spasmed. He felt as if he had been hit by an earth-shattering blow. Ow! The city rudder was thrown into the air. He probably couldn't stand the pain, and his body turned into a black mist. The blood that Ding Ming spat out probably wouldn't cause any harm to origin ability users, but it would be fatal to devouring world creatures. The poisoned air around them began to dissipate, and the air finally returned to its usual foggy, cold state. The black mist in the air changed. A moment later, a wild boar monster the size of a steel mane warrior fell down. It howled angrily at Ding Ming. "Bastard, you actually forced me to reveal my immortal aperture. You're dead for sure today." Ding Ming smiled. "So you're a boar monster. Very good." The devouring world creatures had a special characteristic when they evolved. No matter what form they evolved into, they would always be in the form of their previous host. The fact that the city rudder had turned into a wild boar meant that his immortal aperture hadn't been fully cultivated. At the very least, he wasn't like Lung Yin, who had a true human form. Of course, in terms of strength, he could be considered one of the more powerful ones. After all, he could even beat back Xie Feili and Su Mingling. The city rudder's front limbs slapped the ground angrily, causing the ground to tremble slightly. "You bastard, I'm going to suck you to death today. Don't even think about leaving your spiritual body behind." Ding Ming's smile became even more eerie. "You really think that you can kill me just because you revealed your immortal aperture? It's useless. You have no chance in front of me." The city leader did not waste any more words. His thick body flew forward. This time, he did not use his arm blades. Instead, he used the sucker in his mouth to stab at Ding Ming like a sharp steel pipe. The tip of the steel pipe was sharp and thin, as if he wanted to suck Ding Ming's flesh and blood into it. Ding Ming still stood still, but this time he did not spit out blood. Instead, he raised his right hand calmly and opened his palm. The inhaler pierced the center of Ding Meng's palm and made a ding sound. From the sound, it was obvious that the inhaler had failed to pierce through. Instead, a seven-colored light suddenly appeared on Ding Meng's palm, forming a seven-colored vortex. The city leader's expression changed. After the inhaler pierced the vortex, not only could it not pierce through, but it could not be pulled back either. In just 2 seconds, the seven-colored energy mixed with the cave virus and the divine light essence rebounded back along the inhaler. The black and thick steel pipe suddenly became colorful. He didn't want to suck Ding Meng's blood, and he did. However, the blood he absorbed was not only useless to him, it was even more harmful to him. TCH, the city leader's entire body was smoking. However, this time it was not black smoke but white fog. It was evaporating like water vapor, and it felt like he was burnt. After a while, the ferocious and thick wild boar turned back into a half-human, half-boar form. The city leader was lying on the ground, his entire body covered with burn marks and thick pus. The black bone armor on his body had melted. It was enough to show that the cave virus had a great restraining effect on the devouring world. Ding Meng really defeated him effortlessly. Xian Yuan could not help but say, "It turns out that not only are you immune to the poison, but the blood in your body also has a great rebounding effect on my devouring world." She sounded a little relieved. Fortunately, she chose to cooperate with Ding Meng from the beginning instead of becoming his enemy. If this kid really went to the devouring world, she would not have to worry about not being able to achieve anything. The city leader was lying on the ground. This time, he cannot even cry out. He looked at Ding Meng in horror, who was approaching him step by step. You swallowed my energy?" Ding Meng looked at him and said meaningfully, "You're wrong. I've fused with your poison source. You're no longer a sect master, but a fierce warrior." The city leader's eyes suddenly revealed a look of hatred. You evil guy." Ding Meng's voice suddenly changed. It became a woman's voice. "Raise your head and take a good look at who I am." In the city leader's vision, Ding Meng was indeed standing in the same place. However, there was another vague mirror image attached to his body. It was blue and misty, and it was full of the majesty of a superior. The city leader's voice changed. There was an indescribable fear in it. Sir Xian Yuan?" This was the illusion of Xian Yuan's own remnant thoughts that she had created by infusing Ding Meng's energy. Xian Yuan said coldly, "What? You think I'm dead, don't you?" The city leader's expression was extremely shocked. He was even more scared than if he had seen a ghost. I kneel." Xian Yuan shouted coldly. The queen of the devouring world had once been very prominent. This majesty had long taken root in the city leader's heart. He knelt in front of Ding Meng without hesitation. Xian Yuan said hatefully, "City leader, you dog slave, how dare you come to Thousand Sail Star to look for me? Do you want to completely destroy my soul?" The city leader was scared out of his wits. He immediately cowed out. "Sir Xian Yuan, it's not like this." "It's not like this," Xian Yuan said. "All right, I'll give you a chance to explain. If you tell me the truth, I'll spare your life. If you have any other intentions, this will be your burial ground." The city leader did not dare to raise his head. He immediately replied, "Sir, when the war ended 100 years ago, the Spectre sect said that you were destroyed by the fleet of the Holy Grail Federation when you covered everyone's retreat." Xian Yuan said proudly, "How could this king's body be destroyed?" The city leader said, "The Holy Clan didn't believe it at first. However, you haven't returned for many years, and we haven't seen any trace of you." Xian Yuan stared at him. "So you ignorant people believed it?" The city leader hurriedly explained, "Sir, without you, the Holy Clan will soon decline." Xian Yuan said angrily, "How will we decline?" The city leader said, "The Holy Clan is divided into 2 factions. One faction supports the development of our sect, while the other faction defected to the Spectre sect, the Immortal sect, and the Spiritual Mountain." Xian Yuan was furious. "A bunch of traitors. How dare they betray our sect when I'm not around?" The city leader lowered his head and said, "Sir, for the past 100 years, the Holy Clan has been stagnant. Our power has been constantly weakened, our territory has been constantly compressed, and our resources have been stretched thin. Because we don't have your leadership, we can't refuse the rude requests of the other three factions. Xian Yuan said sternly. What about you? Which faction do you belong to now? The city leader said, I was personally raised by you 150 years ago. I don't dare to forget my roots. I've been guarding the Holy Clan. Xian Yuan's expression softened. He said calmly, Get up. The city leader stood up respectfully and stood aside like an obedient child. Xian Yuan said again, This Zlata Thousand Sails star has always been a forbidden star field between us and the Federation. I plundered the devouring realm, and suddenly 4 void spirit rays arrived here. What's going on? The city leader lowered his head and said, Sir, the Spectre sect said that a strong enemy will soon arrive on Thousand Sails Star, so they gathered all the factions to investigate. He answered like this because he didn't know the truth of the past. However, Xian Yuan didn't plan to tell him. When did the Spectre sect's words have so much weight? Xian Yuan was a little angry. They said there's a strong enemy. Why are you here? The city leader sighed. Sir, you've been gone for 100 years. Our Holy Clan has been in decline for a long time. I thought that if we can achieve something this time, the other sects will look at us differently. Perhaps we can change our current predicament. Xian Yuan said, These 4 void spirit rays, which factions do they belong to? The city leader said, 2 of them belong to the Spectre family. 1 belongs to the Greenfield Immortal Track, and the other belongs to our Holy Clan Senior Longyi. However, he is very weak right now, but for the future of the Holy Clan, he forcefully carried us out. Xian Yuan looked at him. You must have spent a lot of effort to convince him with your fame. The city leader's voice was a bit sad. Sir, I can only say that I tried my best. Xian Yuan sighed. It's been hard on you. The city leader quickly kneeled down. But seeing Sir now, this subordinate can see hope for the sect to recover. Xian Yuan waved his hand. Now is not the time to say this. I want to ask you, can we immediately return to the devouring realm? The city leader had a difficult expression. This time, the Spectre family's Zhejiang territory's sect master gave the order. Without permission, we can't move the void spirit rays. Xian Yuan was a bit impatient. I want to ask you, is there a problem if we send it back to Senior Longyi? You don't need to worry about anything else. The city leader's eyes fell onto Ding Ming. Sir, there's no problem if you want to go back, but this person... Xian Yuan coldly cut him off. This Mr. Ding Ming is this king's best friend, as well as my Holy Clan's most honored guest. Seeing him is like seeing this king. Do you have any other questions? Ding Ming's eyes drooped. You really know how to pull strings. When did I become your best friend? The city leader said, Since it's like this, then please move to the transfer lake behind us. At this time, Ding Ming and the others might have forgotten something. He had returned the city leader to its original state, so the poison barrier in the air was weakened by more than half. The patrol fleet's radar was now back to normal. On the Golden Eagle mothership, the screens in the command center were back to normal. The staff suddenly exclaimed, Sir, we need you to take a look at this. On the big screen in the middle of the room, a scene that shocked all the staff appeared. They saw a pig-headed monster walking down the hill dejectedly. Ding Ming was following behind him at a leisurely pace, as if the pig-headed monster was his pet. This scene was simply unbelievable. Origin ability users and the monsters of the devouring world had always been at each other's throats. How could they possibly walk together? However, something even stranger was yet to come. After Ding Ming went down the mountain, he immediately met up with Lan Bing and the others. Seeing the pig-headed monster nodding and bowing to them, it seemed to respect them quite a bit. What's going on? Ling Xingwen was also stunned. Previously, when she had said that Ding Ming was involved with the devouring world, she naturally knew that this was just a random excuse. But now it seemed that it was true. Unfortunately, she was right. Not good. Howdong finally noticed something. They're not retreating to the south, but to the north, where the pollution is deep. Chapter 744. This was a very strange scene. The rocks and trees in the contaminated area were gradually swallowed up by the rising swamp. In the green swamp, countless ferocious and terrifying monsters emerged. The Devourer army rushed toward the hillside like an avalanche. However, when these monsters passed by Ding Meng's group, they treated Ding Meng's group as if they were nothing and even spontaneously made way for them. As Ding Meng's group walked deeper into the contaminated area, the starship's radar cut off the real-time image again due to the energy of the poison barrier. Many staff members turned their heads to look at Haodong with disbelief on their faces. Haodong fell into deep thought. He obviously couldn't understand the strange thing. Ding Meng was actually safe and sound in the middle of the monster army. Ling Xingwen said with a cold face, "If this isn't related to the Devourer world, what else can it be? This is the best evidence." The staff members stepped forward again. "Sir, I've uploaded the information to the database." This meant that they were waiting for instructions from the higher-ups of the military to see if they needed authorization to use the starship's weapon system. Haodong stared at the screen. It's impossible to activate the starship's secondary cannons and above. Ling Xingwen couldn't help but ask why. Haodong's face was serious. The orbital bombardment of the planet destroyers ahead won't destroy Thousand Sails Planet, but it will cause some damage to the planet. This will destroy the ecological environment here and break the balance of Thousand Sails Planet. Besides, these bugs only stopped at the hillside. The Devourer army hasn't crossed the border yet. Ling Xingwen said, "Are we just going to watch Ding Meng slip away?" Haodong was also a little worried. Fortunately, the staff member's voice came. "Sir, we've received orders from Horizon Base 1 in the north. We're authorized to use weapons below the Star Destroyer level to force the Devourer army to withdraw from Thousand Sails Planet." Haodong was shocked and said decisively, "Pass down my order. Attack Squadron 1. Prepare to land on Thousand Sails Planet. Coordinates 30, 55, 5D. Our goal is to force the Devourer army to retreat and capture the Federation criminals and their followers." As soon as he gave the order, Eisendale, who was advancing in the contaminated area, stopped everyone. "Ding Meng, look over there." Looking up in the direction of her finger, he saw a row of sparkling stars in the dark night sky. If he didn't pay attention, he would think that it was a clear sky after the rain, and the stars were shining brightly. But in fact, the light of this row of stars was very abnormal. It was clearly a kind of light blue color. Celestial Yuan was the first to react. "Not good. This is the human race's drone fleet. Run." Hearing this, the city leader was shocked and took the lead to run. Due to the limited speed of Gu Zi and Yitzi, Ding Meng carried Gu Zi on his back, and Eisendale carried Yitzi on her back. The six of them rushed into the deep area. The number of stars in the night sky gradually increased. It was originally a row of 10 stars, but in just 30 seconds, it became 10 rows. A minute later, there were hundreds of stars, densely packed and covering the sky. Looking at the situation, there were still more drones entering the atmosphere. It was said that the demon race's army was as scary as a flood, but no one would have thought that the human fleet would also use the human wave tactic to win by numbers. The scene was just as spectacular. These drones looked like mantises baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Their thick and powerful steel forearms were the barrels of all kinds of weapons. The attack of these drones was very orderly. Every 40 drones formed a cross formation and swooped down from the sky. The sound of sharp weapons breaking through the air was often hurried and sharp, but the sound of the drones breaking through the air was like the sound of Sanskrit from the deep sea. Just this sound alone was enough to make people tremble with fear. The dozens of drones that swooped down at the front opened fire in unison. Countless electroparticle laser bullets formed a net and cut the ground. The swamp was instantly set ablaze. Piles of monsters howled and fell down, merging with the pus. In addition to this net-like firepower, there were also laser beams and cannon shells mixed in. The laser beams were targeted and burned back and forth towards some of the warrior tier monsters. The milky white cannon shells were all over the place. For a moment, The ground was completely blasted to the point that it was impossible to see its original appearance. The only thing that could be seen was the various colors of the energy and the explosion effects, including how the monsters died. Of course, in the midst of such an explosion, the ordinary world devourer monsters would have been turned into ashes without even thinking. This was not the end, because this round of drones was the first to attack. The ones that swooped down all used the most primitive parabolic projectile. This was obviously a bombardment group. The energy cannons that were thrown down did not explode like before. When all the energy cannons came into contact with the swamp, they turned into oval white energy photons with a bang. Then, there was a sizzling sound as if they were burning the ground. It did not disappear until 10 seconds later. There was no explosion effect. However, when these bombardment groups swept down, it felt as if the ground within a radius of 10 kilometers had been blown up with a hill as the center. Hundreds of egg-like photon bombs were scattered all over the field. When the explosion ended, the polluted area that was originally rainforest swamp-shaped had turned into a dry desert with rubble all over the ground. It seemed that the Federation's fleet also had some experience in dealing with the Devouring World Army. The first round of attack was aimed at eliminating the monsters. The second round of attack was to purify the polluted terrain, and now it was the third round. Many drones dropped a lot of light spots to the ground. In fact, these were all advanced nanotechnology. When the light spots floated to the ground, they quickly and automatically assembled into huge tanks, forming a torrent of steel that slowly moved forward. This was a typical air and ground cleaning operation. Xian Yuan used Ding Meng's psychic vision to see all this. For a moment, she was in a trance. 100 years had passed, and the technology of the Holy Grail Federation had made great progress. In the war 100 years ago, the Federation's fleet could be called a large-scale military operation, which required the joint efforts of several fleets. Now, just the drone fleet released by 2 planet destroyers could annihilate tens of thousands of devouring world troops in an instant and restore the original terrain of the planet. She really couldn't imagine how amazing the power of a whole special patrol fleet of the Federation would be. Could it be that in the future, the devouring world would no longer have a chance to dominate the Holy Grail star system? In a trance, a holy lake with an area of about 5,000 square meters appeared in the middle of the swamp. The city rudder rushed into the lake first. The lake water rolled as if it was boiling, emitting a strange energy fluctuation. This was the teleportation array of the devouring world, serene dream projection. It had the same principle as the humans' Chu-Ing transmission. It used precise coordinates to achieve space transfer, but it was far less advanced than Chu-Ing transmission because it often took 5 minutes to activate and teleport people away. These 5 minutes were undoubtedly fatal. Ding Meng even injected a small amount of diluted divine light energy into the Guzi siblings to ensure that they would not be poisoned when they walked into the lake. But at this moment, countless drones whizzed past above their heads, constantly hovering around. Obviously, they had already targeted this place. The city rudder's face was ashen. It's over. Not to mention that most of his strength had been crippled by Ding Meng. Even if he fought against such a large-scale technological force with his body as the leader, his chances of winning were pitifully small. In the end, the devouring world had underestimated the strength and determination of the Federation. The devouring world's armed forces were still the same in the past century, but the Federation's technology was constantly upgrading. Moreover, the Federation was really daring to fight, not just sending 2 planet destroyers here for show. If the void ray above you really dares to move, then my Golden Eagle mothership will immediately rush here, and let's have a real fight. Let's see if your poison cloud monster is stronger or my steel cannon is stronger. Ding Meng's face also sank because he saw a mantis drone hovering at a low altitude by the lake. The mantis but projected a beam of light, and 2 remote real-time projection mirrors appeared in the beam of light. They were actually Haodong and Ling Xingwen. Haodong's face was serious. Ding Meng, don't put up any unnecessary resistance. You won't be able to escape. Ding Ming couldn't help but sneer. I'm very curious. When did I become a grade A criminal of the Federation? Ling Xingwen said sternly, shut up. You've injured so many people and killed so many powerful origin ability users before. Why don't you obediently surrender? Ding Ming's eyes were cold. I haven't even settled the score with you for the descendants of those doctors, and you're the first to bite back. Ling Xingwen said angrily, you killed so many seniors of the Ling family, stole the Xinghong group's energy source, and now you've injured Aunt Fong to this extent. You even dared to attack a military officer. If you're not a criminal, what are you? Ding Ming really didn't want to argue with her. When did the Xinghong group's energy source become yours? Ling Xingwen said, we were the first to discover it. Ding Ming was also very angry. The energy source is with me right now. If you have the ability, come and take it. At this moment, the lake below their feet was already emitting dense white gas. Vaguely, a complicated pattern appeared on the surface of the lake. A transmission array was being formed. Haodong's tone was much gentler. Ding Ming, no matter what, you've killed origin ability users of the Federation. This is an indisputable fact. For the Federation, this is a great loss to its national defense. If you think you've been wronged, you can come back with me to the Holy Splendor military and give a reasonable explanation. I believe the military will give you a fair explanation. In the name of the Major General of the Holy Grail Federation, I guarantee that your safety will be guaranteed along the way. If you insist on running away, I can only say that you've embarked on a path of no return. I hope you'll reconsider. His words were quite objective. If you came back with me now, I could at least guarantee your life. However, if you ran to the devouring world, it was hard to say if they would accept you, but there would be no place for you in the Holy Grail Federation. Ling Xingwen's eyes seemed to be a little bloodshot. Ding Ming, did you hear what the Major General said? I advise you not to become an enemy of the entire Holy Grail Federation. Otherwise, you'll end up in a fate worse than death. Ding Ming laughed. Chapter 745. The moment the remote projection was turned off, the city leader immediately became nervous. 3 minutes left. What should we do? At this moment, thousands of fighter jets had surrounded the teleportation lake from all directions. It seemed that the warning and persuasion were useless. The fleet was ready to use force. On the Golden Eagle mothership, Ling Xingwen was exasperated. This despicable thing, he must die. She could say this directly, but Haodong couldn't say it out loud. He ordered calmly, prepare to attack. The staff hesitated again. Sir, Miss Eisen is also in the teleportation circle. The boss of a Shanghao group is also there. There are also 2 natives from Thousand Sail Star. This is a bid against the rules. Haodong glanced at him. Didn't you see that the devouring world monster is also there? A monster that can use serene dream projection can't be lower than an elder. If we let it go, who will explain it to the higher-ups? The meaning was clear. The drone fleet attacked the teleportation circle to eliminate the devouring world monster. If Ding Ming could withstand it, then he had nothing to say. Of course, if he couldn't, then he would die in vain. Who told him to be associated with the devouring world monster? This was indeed clear evidence. A group of 5 humans standing in the teleportation lake of the devouring world was fine. The Fey general next to them was nodding and bowing to them. No one would believe that they were not the enemy's accomplices. So what if Eisendel was the daughter of the Rainbow family? In front of such a big issue, even the manager of the Rainbow family didn't dare to argue. If they insisted on being with Ding Ming, then they would have to pay the price. As for Ling Xingwen's idea, it was even more simple and crude. If I, Xinghong, can't get it, no one else should even think about it. I would rather destroy the divine light energy source than let you go. The system's voice said, the attack program is being activated. Countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. At this time, Ding Ming, who was in the middle of the lake, looked at the charging cannons of the fighter jets. He slowly raised his right hand, and the cross-shaped star formed by the divine light in his palm slowly started to spin. Lan Bing and Eisendel looked at him nervously. Their immortal energy couldn't help but surge. Are you trying to copy me? Are you going to take the firepower of the starship head-on? Swish, swish, swish. The weapon systems of thousands of fighter jets were activated at the same time. Countless electroparticle lasers, concentrated energy beams, cannons, and plasma cannons were fired at the same time. The scene was like a flood coming from all directions in an instant. With a loud clang, a huge rainbow-crowned shield appeared and covered the entire teleportation sacred lake. This was the super shield with the largest force field, the strongest energy, and the widest coverage ever since Ding Meng started practicing the Diamond Star technique. It was like a city wall under the night sky. Ding, ding, ding. Pa, pa, pa. Boom, 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 boom. For a moment, the surface of the shield was like fireworks. All kinds of attacks exploded on the shield, but the shield was as steady as Mount Tai and did not budge at all. It felt like all kinds of melon shell fragments had hit a glass cover. All the staff on the mothership were shocked once again. Everyone knew how powerful Origin ability users were, but very few Origin ability users could withstand the firepower of a fleet on their own. Ding Meng, this guy, had actually withstood it. Haodong was also silent. He thought that his persuasion would be effective, but it turned out that Ding Meng was already prepared and knew that they would attack. At worst, he could just take it head-on. In fact, Ding Meng, who was inside the shield, looked relaxed, but he was actually very weak. The essence stored in the smelting space was surging out, and it consumed more energy than when he fought against Fong Lin. The firepower of these drones was negligible to him, but thousands of fighter jets were firing at the same time. The energy index was extremely high. The most important thing was that he could not dodge, because if he removed the shield, the teleportation array would be blown into nothingness in an instant. Xian Yuan obviously saw Ding Meng's predicament and could not help but ask, "How long will it take to form?" The helm was even more anxious. 2 minutes and 21 seconds. Increase the firepower. Haodong quietly watched the central screen. At this moment, the tanks at the rear had also advanced to the edge of the sacred lake. These tanks were using energy-gathering neutron cannons, and the tips of all the cannons were condensed celestial spheres. The bright white spheres shot out extremely thin rays of light that focused on a single point. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The shield's color changed from rainbow to an almost transparent white, and it flashed rapidly. It was obvious that Ding Meng's energy could not keep up with the shield's consumption. Ling Xingwen was overjoyed. "Let's see how long you can last." Haodong's eyes also flashed. He turned his head and said, "Upload the instant message to the database. Ask the higher-ups to grant more authorization." Understood. The staff accepted the order and left. 1 minute and 50 seconds left. The helm said nervously. At this moment, even Lan Bing could feel that Ding Meng's aura was rapidly declining. Ding Meng? Ding Meng still raised his right hand, and his eyes were filled with determination. "It's fine. Let's go together." This was his belief. How many times had he encountered such a life and death crisis? Every time, he had said that everyone would go together, but every time, he would leave alone. "I will not give up on anyone." Ding Meng gritted his teeth, and his body shook violently. The energy shield once again glowed with rainbow light. This time, almost all of his origins were operating at the limit. Ling Xingwen was dumbfounded. This kid was so heaven-defying that even the spaceship's firepower could not break his shield. The staff returned and said, "Sir, the higher-ups have authorized our vanguard to use the spaceship's firepower." Haodong gritted his teeth and said, "Activate it immediately." In the dark space, the steel plate at the bottom of the planet destroyer slowly opened, and a pitch-black square turret was lowered. The turret slowly rotated, and the tip of the turret was aimed directly at Thousand Sails Planet. With a whoosh, a straight and bright ray of light illuminated the space and streaked across the horizon. In the vision of Lan Bing and the others, a bright light shone from above, forcing them to close their eyes. The thick, icy blue railgun arrived in the blink of an eye. At that moment, a violent burning sound came from the top of the shield. The color of the shield faded again, this time turning into a light purple color. Spiderweb-like cracks appeared on the crown of the shield. Ding Meng, who had his right hand raised high, seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. His body suddenly bent, and he spat out a mouthful of white blood. It was obvious that this attack had caused his already injured body to suffer even more damage. Ding Meng, brother Ding Meng, everyone exclaimed. Lan Bing and Eisendale reached out to help him, but Ding Meng waved his hand and forced himself to straighten his back. He stared straight ahead, his eyes filled with anger. How? Ling, I'll remember this. In the future, I'll get back at you with interest. Ling Xingwen sneered disdainfully. You're just an arrow at the end of its flight. However, it was still too early for her to be happy. At this moment, Ding Meng's entire body was operating at its maximum capacity. All the energy stored in the smelting space was unleashed. Under the gaze of thousands of eyes, Ding Meng's boots turned into a light form with a whoosh. Following that, his arms also turned into Qilin arms. His entire person had turned into a half-human, half-light monster. Originally, he did not want to use the divine light weapon in public, but he did not expect that the other party would not hesitate to use the railgun to kill him. In that case, he would not be polite. What is this? Ling Xingwen was knowledgeable, but he had never seen such a strange thing. Hao Dong could only shake his head. It's my first time seeing it. Not only him, it was also Eisendale's first time seeing such an exaggerated scene. The mark in the shape of a gun on Ding Meng's left face was activated, and it emitted a dazzling white light. 2 seconds later, the imprint actually left his face and floated into the air. With a shio sound, it turned into a spear of light. This was the true form of the divine light weapon. The previous light thorns and short swords were just side equipment. This was the general's main weapon. 1 minute and 30 seconds left. The city helm was counting down. Extremely strong, high-risk energy detected. Type unknown. The staff reported. A scene that left everyone dumbfounded appeared. This white spear of light easily penetrated the shield and soared into the sky. Then, with a bang, it exploded, splitting into hundreds and thousands of spears of divine light, scattering in all directions like countless flying needles. Hao Dong could see that these small laser guns were actually aimed at the fighter jets and tanks around them, just like the energy bullets that Ding Meng had fired. However, these bullets were much more vicious than the particle laser bullets. Each of the small laser guns arrived in the blink of an eye and rapidly sank into the fighter jets. The fighters and tanks around the teleportation lake instantly turned into a pool of fiery red molten steel and fell down. Originally, the shield was releasing fireworks, but now, the entire night sky was raining fire. More than half of the thousands of fighters were killed on the spot. Even though Hao Dong was very knowledgeable, he could not help but reveal a shocked expression in front of his subordinates. This kind of skill was so shocking that it could even melt a mech made of multi-element alloys. How could someone who had cultivated the thermodynamics to such a level be so terrifying? What kind of secret manual was this? In fact, he was thinking too much. In Ding Meng's current state, most of his power source was used to block the orbital cannons head-on. He was just using the advantage of the divine light weapons to attach part of the quenching essence to the weapons. The temperature of the quenching essence was as high as 400,000 degrees Celsius. This temperature might not be much of a threat to some large starships, but these drones were not made of high-end materials. At most, they were made of 128-element alloy. How could they withstand such high temperatures? Therefore, they were melted in an instant. Recall the rest of the fighters. Hao Dong decisively ordered. This was the effect Ding Meng wanted. As soon as the fighters and tanks around them retreated, the pressure on the shield was greatly reduced. Countless small light spears gathered together again, forming a huge spear that stood erect on top of the crown. The delicate ring on the tip of the spear suddenly glowed with rainbow holy light. At the same time, it was slightly distorted, and the orbital cannons were forcibly blocked outside the shield. Hao Dong finally could not sit still. Connect to the command center of the advance party. What's going on? The right thing to do is to leave this place quickly. If we stay here, something will happen sooner or later. Long Yi took a deep breath. If you can really cure my chronic illness, I will listen to you. Chapter 747. Ding Ming didn't say anything. He opened his palm, and the divine light singularity appeared in his palm, spinning into a cross-shaped star. The warehouse panel also appeared in his vision, and the pattern of the 10 divine light crystals appeared in front of him. Last time, he had used the first one, but he only used a quarter of it. Not only did he recover 7 kills, but he also helped Isendale to level up. What was even more exaggerated was that Ding Ming's body almost couldn't contain all of them. The power of the divine light crystals could be seen from this. Ding Ming was familiar with the process this time. He used the singularity to direct the light into the energy pool below, activating the Tai Chi 8 trigrams diagram. The distorted ghost face of the source soul began to recover bit by bit. This process was easier to control because he could judge the progress according to the recovery rate of Long Ye's image. Similar to 7 kills, Long Ye's complete source soul also had the image of an immortal white-haired old man. He floated in the air and bowed deeply to Ding Ming. "Thank you for your kindness. Please accept this senior's bow." Unlike before, Ding Ming suddenly discovered that Long Yi had established a telepathic connection with him. His field of vision suddenly changed again, turning into the depths of outer space. In the pitch-black depths, there were 4 void spirit rays hovering and countless wyverns flying around them. His vision changed again. In the distant sky above Thousand Sails Star, 2 planet destroyers were still anchored in their original positions, and all the major weapon systems on the ships were aimed at this side. Although there were only 2 starships, the black barrels of the cannons were all staring at the devouring world army, giving off a kind of frightening deterrence. Ding Ming immediately understood that this was the vision of the Void Spirit Ray, which was Long Ye's vision. This Void Spirit Ray's perception was really strong, far stronger than his telekinesis vision. At this moment, there was a fog in the air. Xian Yuan's remnant consciousness also left Ding Ming's face and floated above the energy pool. "Madams, please take care of little friend Ding Ming. Leave this to us," Xian Yuan ordered. "What about you?" Isendale could not help but ask. Long Yi explained, "The energy pool inside the spirit ray is also a small sacred lake. Lord Immortal Element's remnant consciousness can also be refined in it, which will help in the future transformation. Opening the Void Gate is not an easy task, especially if we have to retreat quickly after opening it. I need Lord Immortal Element to teach me the high-level formation incantation, so we won't disturb you during this period." Ding Ming nodded. "All right, help me to the training room." Just as Lan Bing was about to step forward, Isendale picked up Ding Ming and carried him on her back. Ding Ming was indeed very weak at the moment. The problem was, how many more experts were there behind Shenghao Xinghong? Actually, Haodong's previous persuasion was reasonable. Ding Ming's escape to the Devouring Realm this time was to go against the Federation. In the future, not only would he have to face a large number of experts like Fong Lin, but he would also have to contend with the huge and sophisticated machine that was the Federation's military. It would be unreasonable if he didn't improve his strength. Lan Bing instantly understood Ding Ming's painstaking efforts. Since she had chosen to follow him, she didn't want to be a burden to him. "You're willing to share such precious energy?" Lan Bing couldn't help but ask. Ding Ming sighed. "The Devouring Realm is different from the human world. Here, bloodline and status are very important. You have to be careful of celestial core power. After all, she is the queen of the Devouring Realm. How can such an expert be controlled by others? I told her before that you were my wives. Don't think that she would really believe me. Only when you are strong can you be truly safe in the Devouring Realm." Isendale nodded. "Understood." Lan Bing sighed deeply. "I have nowhere to go anyway. I can only follow you from now on." After the incident on Thousand Sails, the person who hated Ding Ming the most was not Ling Xingwen, but Yuan Jie. Lan Bing would never be able to return to the Sheng Hao group. So, there was a hidden meaning in her words. She had entrusted her life to Ding Ming. Ding Ming glanced at her. "Don't worry, I won't treat you badly." Isendale's eyelids drooped. "Is it okay to flirt in public?" Ding Ming also glanced at her. "You're also my wife. Is this okay?" Isendale flicked her hair. "You haven't married me yet. Don't even think about it. Where's the betrothal gift?" "It's here." Ding Ming suddenly waved his hand, and the divine light, singularity, appeared in his palm again. "This time, I want you to help me share the energy input. If you can't take it anymore, just tell me to stop. How much energy you can absorb depends on your own condition." Then, the model of the divine tree burst into a strong light. The energy of the divine light crystal had been released. Ding Ming's method this time was very exaggerated. He had activated all the remaining energy of the first crystal for no other purpose than to heal his injuries and further improve. At the same time, it would be best if he could forcefully upgrade Lan Bing. If the remaining energy of the divine light crystal was converted into an energy index, it would be around 200 billion points. The slightest carelessness would cause her to explode and die. As soon as the green spirit divine tree was activated, Lan Bing immediately felt the terror of the divine light crystal. The 5 cores in her heart were activated spontaneously, spinning wildly. She cultivated the 3 elements of ice, biochemistry, and light speed. Considering the big picture, Ding Ming decided not to teach her. Lan Bing had improved a lot, and she needed time to upgrade her various techniques, secret manuals, scriptures, and combat skills. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.